106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Good evening, Chicago. Welcome to another Friday night edition of Chicago Corner. Great to see you all here tonight. I appreciate all of you joining us. Let's go into the live chat and see who's checked in so far. As always, the mama bear of the program, Kathy Powers, Arturo Medina. I see Ed chiming in there, although I see 5 people in the live chat here on StreamYard. Hopefully we'll see some more of our wonderful, wonderful contributors chiming into the live chat. Yes, Art. Yes, it is me. As you know, on Friday nights. Well,
here I am.
And there seems to be a little lag in the buttons tonight, but I'm not here alone. As always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Edward Heller.
Happy Friday, everyone. Did you know, Jerry, that it is National Pizza Party Day?
But Ed, isn't every day National Pizza Party Day for you?
Well, yeah. And it's special because it's Pizza Friday. But halfway through the day, I'm looking on Twitter and they're going, "It's Pizza Party Day." I'm like, someone didn't inform me, but that was okay because I had leftover deep dish from the last time I made it, so I got to eat some pizza before I came on air. So hopefully I'll be able to make it through the entire show without passing out.
So what is the history of Pizza Party Day since you brought it up?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm sure somebody said, "Hey, you know what? Let's make a day."
Do you just have the keyword pizza set in your social media up alerts so that anything related to pizza comes across your
I don't actually. It just comes across my radar because I follow a bunch of pizza related accounts and they post in the timeline. So like if Lou Malnati says it's Pizza Party Day, who am I to argue with Lou Malnati?
Art shares it's Ed with the giant meatball behind him, or it's Ed with the giant meatball in front of him. One or the other.
How you doing?
Your balls. I'm just busting your balls. You know, we do that for fun.
What now?
So, hey, starting to warm up finally. We're in the middle of May and a little bit. I went out today. I was able to go out without my jacket. So that was a good sign. And I made sure to prepare before the show in my Chicago Corner mug. Delicious French vanilla coffee.
Yeah, that may be a collector's item if we can't get the store working, but it's a work in progress. I'm looking to see if we can get a better vendor to sell you guys top quality merch. Plus, when they work on the flavor improving technology on those mugs, sometimes you have to you gotta bend a few elbows and arms and stuff and twist a few arms. That's the phrase I'm thinking of, in order to get past the inspectors on the production of those things. I've said too much.
I have no doubt Ed's going to get the merch situation under control, as I was trying to get our bank situation under control today, so we could start diverting what meager funds we have coming in, although we appreciate all of them, to Chicago Corner account. I went to the bank today to finally set up the official account, and I didn't have, I guess the federal ID notice that you get that shows you actually have a federal ID associated with your corporation isn't good enough for a bank. They need your articles of incorporation also. So I was empty-handed with that, but I emailed them to my banker. So hopefully we'll have stuff set up on Monday, and we'll be absolutely totally official, so we can start recovering what's in our Rockfin account and our YouTube account and our Patreon account to go towards our forthcoming StreamYard expenses, since that's gonna need renewal. But anyway, I'm going off too far into the weeds. We're just talking personal shit here.
We're also talking co-op stuff, which is I think it's important to share, because we are a work in progress as far as worker co-ops go. But I believe we may be the first streaming worker co-op that I know of.
Well, that we know of. Let's check on that, so we're not speaking out of turn. Yeah. But as far as on a personal note, I'm always a work in progress. So everything we do here is a work in progress.
At least in Chicago, and I think, what is Block Club a worker co-op? I don't remember. But if they are, they're a journalist organization first. We're kind of like a show first.
Yeah.
Anyway, but if you enjoy this ridiculous conversation that I am creating for no reason or very little important reason, and making the show go super late, please support us at patreon.com/Chicago Corner and be a Patreon supporter of the show. Let people know that we exist. If you cannot be a Patreon supporter, that's cool. Just share the show, hit the like button, post links on all the social media. If you're in a Reddit chat and you want to talk to somebody about us, please be kind, but share the links.
Yeah, I that's the best way to help us right now, is just to share our YouTube channel, share our Twitter. Tell your friends we know these new knuckleheads, and we know these two knuckleheads in Chicago that think people care what they have to say about things on Tuesdays and Fridays. But it's entertaining anyway, so tune in and check it out. They play really funny drop-in videos when they want to punctuate their points. Art made a great comment here. Banks and social media are like homeowners associations. Too many rules and obstacles. That seems to be like the entire state of the United States of America right now. But
yes.
Art, your point is well taken.
Yeah, the red tape industry is doing really great right now.
So speaking of rules, or not necessarily rules, but obstacles, and you know how much I love my transitions, this came across our radar today. Can you center that photograph?
I'll bring it in.
Okay, so here's what I look at this photo, and as much as I know that Brandon Johnson is really affectionately thanking Mayor Lightfoot for her service, there's a little part of me that wishes he was actually squeezing the life out of her after reviewing what one of his city council associates and colleagues had to share. So this came from the Sun-Times today. We thought she was going to be gone. We thought that we got in our last Lori Lightfoot licks last Friday, but Johnson City Council floor leader portrays Lightfoot as a sore loser, undermining smooth transition. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's my alderman.
Who would have thought? So this came from Fran Spielman. Mayor Lightfoot, in her final days, really worked to harm this incoming administration. It's sad. It's unfortunate. But we now have to come together as a city and clean up the mess that she left us. Carlos Ramirez Rosa, the mayor's city council floor leader and Ed's alderman, told the Sun-Times. Look, Mayor Johnson can't, he's got to play nice. He's got to be diplomatic. He's got to be mayoral. But thank goodness one of his allies was willing to come forward and say, yeah, she forgot to flush the toilet on the... No, I'm sorry. She flushed the toilet too many times and it's overflowing now, and we got to clean that up too.
Oh, you mean the executive orders?
Yes, yes. Well, among many things. Lori Lightfoot was described Thursday as a sore loser whose wholly inappropriate decision to sign 10 executive orders on her final workday in office has forced Mayor Brandon Johnson to, quote, clean up the mess. And we talked about this last week. Why did she suddenly have to sign 10 executive orders? Why didn't she actually enact these orders when she was serving over her 4 years, if they were that important? And now we know. Yeah. Because it leaves Johnson's administration a mess to clean up because she's a fucking sore loser. Thin-skinned, sore loser. I thought we had retired this drop-in also, but thanks goes out to James Franco.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
All right, so back to the article. Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa of the 35th Johnson City Council floor leader and hand-picked zoning committee chair said the first elected Chicago mayor in 40 years to be denied a second term had no business issuing any executive orders on her way out the door, let alone 10. Lightfoot's decision to do so underscored the fact that what she described during Johnson's inauguration ceremony as the peaceful transfer to power was not so peaceful behind the scenes. Mayor Lightfoot, in her final days, really worked to harm this incoming administration. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but we now have to come together as a city to clean up the mess that she left us. Ramirez Rosa, chair of the Democratic Socialist Caucus, told the Sun-Times. Just personal note, I wish that these articles would not repeat the headline within the article.
Yeah, it gets repetitive.
It gets repetitive. And they're just like, I know you guys heard me say it, but they had it in the headline when I started, so.
You know, it's okay because sometimes my ADHD misses the first time you said it. So, and I imagine there's some of you out there that are also dealing with this brain Swiss cheese affliction that I am now embracing. And so I'm okay if we occasionally repeat things.
Once you're a lame duck executive, you have to be very careful about what you pass, particularly when the voters have already rejected you. And there's no question that Mayor Lightfoot was resoundingly rejected by the voters of this city before she made her way out of City Hall in her getaway. Was it a Cadillac?
I think it was a Cadillac.
Yeah, she looked like she was fleeing office like some South American dictator.
Gangster.
Gangster, yeah, and that vintage convertible she took off in with her wife, Lurch. Did I say that? Sorry.
I know nothing about her family, so
I don't either, and that's unfair for me. No, that was unfair.
And I don't typically do cheap shots like that unless it's super, super funny.
They are an odd couple to look at, though, aren't they?
I don't want to. Honestly, I don't care.
I don't care. They're an odd couple to look at. And then you start to think about things and your brain goes places that you really shouldn't let it go.
To be fair, Jerry, I think Lightfoot would be part of an odd couple with anybody because she's like 2 inches tall.
That's true. Ramirez Rosa laughed out loud when asked whether Lightfoot was a sore loser. I could just imagine his laugh out loud. Ah! I've heard from people working on the migrant crisis. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead in a paragraph. Let me do that again. Oops. Ramirez Rosa laughed out loud when asked whether Lightfoot was a sore loser. Ah! Yeah, she was not happy about not receiving a second term, and she was not helpful to the extent that she should have been if she really wanted to see the city succeed after her departure, he said.
You know, I think, Jerry, that maybe we need to try to get Carlos on the show so he can laugh out loud live on stream. So
I'd like to hear what that sounds like. Yeah.
Soundbite. If anybody out there in the live stream knows how to get in touch with Carlos, you want to let him know that we'd love to have him on the show. I know he's an alderman. Maybe I'll just have to buckle up and call his office or tweet him.
If he owes anybody, it's you. You're a constituent. Tell him what you do here. I mean, look, I can't imagine he wouldn't be absolutely amused and appreciative of what we're doing here. I mean, we are progressive minded. We are, pseudo socialist slanted, I think, democratic socialists. So I would hope he would enjoy our show in the spirit in which
I think he would. Yeah, I think he would realize that we're populists for sure, and then he definitely is one of those. I think he'll be amused by my short anecdote of how me and former alderman of the 33rd Ward, Dick Mel, got drawn out of our own wards and into his.
Oh, those aldermen and their redrawing of the wards. The city. Anyway, Carlos Ramirez Rosa went on to say after he laughed out loud, as Franz Spielman shared, I've heard from people working on the migrant crisis that a lot of basic information was not shared with the transition team, that it was very difficult to get basic data and basic information from the city that would help the transition team better prepare. And not just on a migrant crisis, but a whole host of issues that the transition team was looking at. Again, are any of us surprised that she was, very, very stoic in front of the cameras, but kicking and screaming behind the scenes with all this crap that she was dropping, crapping the bed everywhere on the 5th floor before she took off in her getaway car. A Lightfoot spokesperson countered
Of course.
Now, of course. Remember, Ed, they were never available for comment before. Do you remember? Yeah. Lightfoot staff was reached for comment. No. There was no comment. But now, a Lightfoot spokesperson countered that the now former mayor was, quote, working to ensure a smooth transition in early March, just days after the 3rd place finish that eliminated her. I like the way they phrased it, eliminated her. You're fired. Oh, he's not.
Get out.
He's not close by for me to have guest appearance by Dummy Trump. Numerous hard copies of a transition book, hundreds of pages long, was provided to Johnson's team on April 10th. That document was also sent as a computer file. Top aides and cabinet members subsequently participated in more than 60 meetings with Johnson's team and transition consultants, with the substantive follow-ups on specific topics, including the migrant crisis.
I wonder if anybody has submitted a FOIA to look at that transition book just to see what she thought a transition book needed to contain.
Let's give it to, we could do that.
That'd be funny if it was just some coloring book or some empty little journal where she's drawing stuff in markers and crayon, like with little, childish little stick figures going, I hate you, you suck.
I hate all of you in this transition team. I should have been mayor. That's somebody that's imitation of someone with a gravelly voice, not Mayor Lightfoot.
Yeah, that's at least that's 12 packs of cigarettes there.
You kvetching sons of bitches. You peasants.
That was more like 14 packs. There.
You worthless, ungrateful peasants.
Yeah, that's a 14 pack. Raspy voice impression.
Mayor Lightfoot met with then Mayor.
And that was Muttley, the animated dog from Wacky Racers. Yeah,
Dick Dashiell. I've actually been accused many times throughout my life that I snicker like Muttley. I'm just snickering at how much we have to do damage control for me being a bad boy. Jumping into, I just can't help myself when I think of her, and she says something stupid. It's like, let's just say it in the stupid voice and spirit with which we know she's internalizing. Anyway,
well, but it was her spokesman. It wasn't her. So
okay, that's true. God damn, kvetching.
And it just so happens that her spokesman sounded a whole lot like her.
That's true. It was her spokesman imitating her, or spokesperson. Mayor Lightfoot met with then Mayor-elect Johnson on April 6th and offered full and I haven't even been drinking tonight, and offered full collaborative support for herself and her staff, as well as we all remain available to support the Johnson administration in any way possible. The emailed statement said, when you send an email, you clearly can't respond to, ongoing questions related to what
like those automated response emails that make it sound like they're going to get back to you and solve all of your problems and everything's fine and don't worry about it. That's what those responses are. you cannot take any of their responses without a huge pile of salt.
Dude, Google is like this. I'll tell you.
And it's going to get worse because all those AI things are cropping up they're popping up like weeds. Even my WordPress software now has its own AI module, which I am refusing to use for as long as possible.
I'm sure anybody who's tried to contact customer service, as I did with Google to sort out our AdSense account, has dealt with this nonsense of you have to literally push 10 buttons until you're given the opportunity to request a live operator. And then when you do, I had this experience contacting a company. So like, let's dive off into the weeds real quickly, drive off the road. I was trying to reach out to a company to find out if they have an office that handles brand integration. And what that means is like a company's willing to pay to have their item or their brand in your film project, and it helps you with your budget. So I'm just trying to find out from this corporation, do you have a brand integration department? Multiple phone numbers. Anytime you click the operator, it went to a line that sounded like you're getting a fax tone. And then when you did talk to someone live and you specifically said what I needed, she took my number, said she'd pass my message along and someone would get back to me. And then she gave me a case number to refer if I didn't hear from anybody within a week. And I'm like, can't you just fucking click me through? But here's the kicker. 2 days after I left my number, before I was waiting a week to hear back to see if this company actually even had that department, I get a survey from the company asking, how was your customer service experience? And I'm like, it was shit.
What customer service?
Yeah, you're so worried. And this is just all performative. It's like, why do they even, it's almost like they're laughing at you, right? You don't get what you need. And then they act like they care. And then I'm still waiting. Here's my new rule.
Hold up. Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish. Okay. Here's my new rule for everybody. I'm the type of person who, when I call someone for something, for service, or, to share an opportunity or talk about something at a company, I'm usually the person who waits a week, 2 weeks, because I don't want to be a pest. And then 2 weeks later, I'll call back, and then I won't hear from anybody for another 2 weeks. And it literally rolls into months. Right? Here's my new rule. If you don't hear from somebody within 2 weeks' time, which is more than enough, after you hit the 2 weeks, start calling them every day, because you're not being a pest and you're not being rude. They were rude not to get back to you to begin with on a business matter. I don't think there's anything unreasonable about that anymore. So that's what I'm going to start doing.
Okay. I just want to do my impression to a person on hold in customer service.
Okay.
Your call is important to us. You are 758 person in line. Please hang on the line and we'll get to you as soon as possible.
Or push the button if you want. Okay, we got it. We got the girl. Or push the button.
Your call is important to us. Please stay on the line, and a real person might get back to you in 700 years. Okay, I'm done.
You're done, all right. Or they will ask you to push a button for someone to call you back, and then that never happens. And I called a business today to sort something out, and they said, you are, as you were just doing, you're sixth in line. Great. And then as I clicked, I was sixth in line. Then they said, there's no one available right now. Please call us between our regular business hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And I was calling them at 1 p.m. and I got disconnected 4 times. It's like I'm in their business hours, but they're telling me I'm not. I'm in the twilight zone, Ed. I'm in the twilight zone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is such a crock of shit.
Sure is, Al. All right, let's get back to the article before let's pull the car out of the ditch that I just drove us into. Sorry, everybody, but it's a stream of consciousness show.
Where were we? Mayor Lightfoot met with then Mayor-elect
I got it.
on the 8th or 6th.
Got it.
Okay.
I got it. Mayor Lightfoot met with then Mayor-elect Johnson on April 6 and offered full collaborative support from herself and her staff, and we all remain available to support the Johnson administration in any way possible, the emailed statement said. As recently as Inauguration Day, when Mayor Lightfoot greeted then Mayor-elect, that in that photo op, in which I wish that he was squeezing the life out of her, she again personally pledged that she is available to support him in any way he desires. As such, we are mystified that the alderman would make such a claim that is demonstrably false. Is it? Is it? Why would he decide to do that? Why would he decide to share that if there wasn't even a nugget of truth in it? Come on. I mean, this follows what we've witnessed for 4 years. This is not a surprise. He didn't just pull this out of his ass to make her look bad. She's made herself look bad for 4 years with every other story that the press has contacted her aides to talk about, and they get no comment. Now they're going to comment that someone said, yeah, it was a shit show behind the scenes, and she's a sore loser, and she's making our job even harder.
Okay. Just so you guys know, the next part Jerry's going to read is basically Johnson's administration doing the olive branch thing that they like to do.
Because he's taken the high road, which I know we should probably try to take too, but I'm just so tired, Ed. High road just seems to take us nowhere.
Well, but the low road's so fun, Jerry.
That is, and more entertaining for our viewers and our own sanity. Jason Lee, a senior advisor to Johnson, called the Sun-Times to say the new mayor does not share his floor leader's viewpoint about Lightfoot's post-election behavior, because of course he had to. We understand how difficult elections are. From our perspective, we appreciated the mayor and her team's willingness to engage. Now, again, this is another thing I like about Johnson, okay? They're taking the high road because, look, Lori Lightfoot will probably never, ever be amenable to helping them in the future, as she claims she will be. But, look, he's doing what the right thing is. He's being the grown-up in the room is what he's doing, and that's what Jason Lee is sharing and demonstrating. There's never enough time to get fully downloaded on everything that you need to know. They still have their own prerogatives on their own things that they're trying to get done. We understand that, but we're ultimately appreciative and grateful for Lightfoot's collaboration during the transition. The mayor has personally been grateful not only for the professional relationship, but also for some of the personal advice that she gave him around his family and other issues like that. I don't know what advice I take from her on my family, but the most significant of the final 10 executive orders Lightfoot signed would box Johnson in. How magnanimous of her. Box Johnson in by establishing a pension advance fund with $641.5 million in surplus funds from this year and last. A $242 million pension prepayment, which was included in Lightfoot's final budget that triggered more than a dozen upgrades in Chicago's bond rating. Johnson almost certainly has other priorities for those surplus funds, having promised to make $1 billion worth of investments in people. So he had a plan coming in, and she basically kicked him in the nuts is what she did. That's what she did. Let's state it for what it is. He promised $1 billion worth of investment in people through an array of social programs that form the cornerstone of his anti-violence strategy. That would mean issuing his own executive order to undo the one Lightfoot left behind. As incoming zoning committee chair, Ramirez Rosa said he is most concerned about Lightfoot's executive order, directing the zoning administrator to investigate aldermanic-led rezoning. It's preposterous because when aldermen want to rezone a parcel, they go to the zoning administrator to ask for their advice and their assistance in prepping the ordinance that leads to that rezoning. An investigation has already occurred. You're asking the person involved in it to then investigate themselves, he said. Our zoning administrator is speaking every single day to aldermen, developers, and some of the biggest investors in our city, trying to figure out how you move some of these projects forward. They simply don't have the time or the personnel to conduct an investigation of every single down zone or rezone that they were already a part of. Lee hinted strongly that both the pension and zoning executive orders would be undone. Those are two big issues that we don't want to be unduly restrained on because we have our own perspective on how to grapple, particularly as it relates to pensions, he said. And that's the end of that article.
That's the end of that. And Kathy Powers says Carlos is a straight shooter. So I'll take her word for that.
Yeah.
So,
I love what Art had to share here. As much as the city and public were unfair to Lightfoot, she was just, we were unfair to her, Art, because of your second point. She was just as equally unfair to us. She could have been on our side, but the whole of her administration, she wasn't. Yeah, she basically carried out Rahm Emanuel's, a lot of Rahm Emanuel's policies forward that Brandon Johnson referenced in that video from 10 years ago that we shared on Tuesday's show. Get out of my water. And as I said then, Lori Lightfoot was the speed bump to progress, because everything that Johnson ran on that he's promising now was projecting forward from that conversation he had 10 years ago on the Mayor 1% book at Haymarket. So, yep. All right. So our next story is a lot of fun. We have some video with it. Breakfast with Fiends. Let's put this up, okay? And it's now. I love the fact that the female host on the show here is blocking. She's kind of making my point, because her head could very easily be an eye. Fox and Fiends. Fox and Fiends.
Welcome back to Fox and Fiends.
Who's that guy in the far right who's the grinning ghoul in the blue tie over there?
I forget their names.
Brian Kilme. I mean, Kilme.
Is that Kilme? That's Kilme.
Yeah. When I watch him, I want to say Kilme, but yeah, Brian Kilme. Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, as usual, without any real informed opinion, Fox News decided to continue to malign our mayor-elect, who's only been in office now 4 days. 4 days. By sending out their correspondent, Gianno Caldwell, who I understand lived in Chicago and is very, very critical about everything in Chicago, and is one of these correspondents who thinks that Brandon Johnson is the second coming of Lori Lightfoot. And I'm just like, anybody on social media who's claiming that, where do you get that? Because he's the same color that she is? I think that's exactly where they get it from.
Well, maybe, but I think also it could be because he has to work with Democrats. And so whenever when they told him he was going to be in the DNC, or they told him they're bringing the Democratic National Convention, to Chicago, well, he's got to talk to them about that, because it's going to happen while he's there. So, what's he going to do? Not talk to them?
Right? The whole point of his administration.
That's right. Okay, in just a few hours.
Sorry.
The whole point of his administration has been to reach out to everybody, all factions of the city, to try to have some equity amongst everybody, not to shut other people out. And I think that also speaks out a lot to what we've referenced in. Look, he's not going to be he's not going to be Harold Washington. I don't even know that he's going to be the second coming of Harold Washington, but I can certainly say I do believe he espouses a lot of the values and solutions that Harold Washington presented, specifically in that all of the different factions that thought because Harold Washington was black meant suddenly everybody who was black in Chicago was going to get preferential treatment. And Harold Washington said, no, this is not about finally you have a seat at the table. My administration is about everybody gets to eat. And I think that Brandon Johnson's example here of, like you said, having to play nice with the Democratic Party, having to play nice with a lot of his opponents or adversaries, speaks to the fact that he's committed to making sure everybody's interests are, if not fully met, at least heard and considered. So here's Fox and Fiends talking about our mayor-elect and their correspondent Gianno Caldwell, who went out to a diner to get the opinions of those in the diner regarding Brandon Johnson's inauguration. And the funny part about that is going to come at the end of it. So
that's right. Okay, in just a few hours, the Windy City will welcome a new mayor.
Brandon Johnson, poised to become perhaps the most progressive mayor that Chicago has ever seen.
Like,
so what do the people think of this?
Like, that's a bad thing. Okay, go on.
Yeah, you listen to them and it's like the things that they use as dog whistles on this channel, and you're like, what's the big deal?
Well, look, we've also talked about the fact the phrase, unfortunately, the label progressive has been bastardized thanks to the squad, thanks to those on the left who aren't progressive, but they saw it as a branding opportunity to steal. So
the people of Chicago. Let's ask Gianno Caldwell. He joins this morning from Rosie's Home Cooking in Naperville, Illinois.
I'm sorry, where? Did you say Naperville?
He's asking people who don't live in Chicago, who aren't affected by what happens in Chicago or this new mayor's policy. This is like everybody in the suburbs prior to the election who had an opinion on this, like they had a stake in it. And I would tell them, do you live in the city? Well, no. Then shut up. Go deal with your mayor in your suburb or your municipality, because we here who are living in Chicago understand what Palos Paul is all about. And we know what's coming if look, he was so relieved he didn't win, Ed. I personally spoke to someone who knows somebody in his camp that said, yeah, he didn't want to win. He was relieved. Everything we've assumed was true.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't live in the Chicago area, Naperville, it's not even in the same county as Chicago. It's not like some of these neighborhoods around Chicago that are part of Chicago. Naperville is like a suburb 30 miles, like I think 30 miles, at least 30 miles west.
That's mostly rural. There is a town there, okay? I mean, it's you drive to Naperville, you're driving
it's a suburb.
What you think is but when you drive on your way there, it's like you feel like you're driving through farmland. If you're taking some of the expressways to get out there.
Yeah, there's a bit of farmland out there still. Not nearly as much as there used to be. I mean, a lot of it got turned into Walmarts, but there is still some grassland out there where they might be. It's probably soybeans probably mostly today. They don't really do much corn out there as they used to. Anyway, back to the video.
Yeah.
Morning, Gianno.
Good morning. That's right. We're talking to folks here who happen to be from Chicago. We're right outside of
Whoa!
Wait.
Happen to be from Chicago, but they live in Naperville now.
No. Listen, did you hear that he also qualified it? He said they happen to be from Chicago or right outside of Chicago. So he's not even sure.
Wouldn't Fox be more honest and actually gain a little bit of credibility if they'd sent Gianno, I don't know, to Max's Deli downtown? Do you think?
I think what they did was they just cheaped out, and Gianno, I think, may have family and friends out in Naperville. So they probably asked him, well, dude, can you just do a story at a nearby restaurant? And then, of course, he was trying to justify it on social media. He got ratioed extremely badly on social media. I even got in on the fun with this little post here. I said, next we go to a restaurant outside of Cairo, Illinois to ask how they feel about the CTA Red Line service.
It's perfect. Art shares another great name for the show. Fox and Fools are not journalists. They're entertainers who let interns do their journalism work for them. They can say shit about us here in Chicago because they live in New York. Good on you, Art. Yep. And our Andrew Golick says, we usually say we're from Chicago and we're in the suburbs. Think it's a suburbanite thing because no one knows where our towns.
I know. I wish I had jumped on the T-shirt bandwagon because some people after this debacle came up with T-shirts.
Dude,
do you have that? Okay, I won't give it away.
Can you let me lead the show, please? Please let me lead the show. Look at the show notes. I've got a plan here. I got a roadmap.
It's in a story. Okay, sorry, I didn't realize it was in one of the stories.
Okay, yeah, I'm captaining the ship tonight. Okay, all right, let's play the video.
Let's play this
video. Gianno.
Good morning. That's right. We're talking to folks here who happen to be from Chicago. We're right outside of Chicago. Big Dale, I'm so sorry for the loss of your son in 2021, Keon. You had a birthday party for yourself and you decided to take it to the north side of Chicago because you believe the south side to be unsafe. and he was still murdered.
Pause it for a
I'm so
moment.
sorry for your loss.
Do you see how right out of the box, he's painting an image of dangerous? Look, I feel very bad that this gentleman lost his son. Okay, obviously, nothing but sympathy and support and I mean, you can't imagine what the loss of it. But why are you leading with that? What does this have to do with asking people what they think about the new incoming mayor? Nothing. He's slanting the story from the get-go by painting Chicago as the violence-ridden, gang-infested city. But he could have shared that with this gentleman off camera.
He's also and the guy he's talking to is wearing a Detroit cap too. So
it has no place in the story. No place in the story that he leads with it. Okay, let's play it.
Awesome. How are you doing, and what do you think about the election of Mayor Brandon Johnson?
Well, I think it's a fluke. I don't think he's going to do any better than Lori Lightfoot. I have no confidence in him. He's already coming in the gate saying the wrong thing. Like we had to leave the South Side to go to the North Side, thinking that my son would be safe there, and he still was murdered. So I don't see anything turning better for Brandon Johnson with him being in office.
This is a horrible tragedy that this man moved from the South Side to the North Side, and he still lost his son. What does it have to do with Brandon Johnson?
Nothing.
Johnson wasn't even mayor when he lost his son. Johnson had nothing to do with the policies with the Chicago overfunding the police department, which aren't we always told more cops, more money is going to make everybody safe? Apparently it didn't in his son's case. But this is just how grossly propagandistic we know this, okay? And it's not like CNN doesn't engage in the same kind of propaganda for the neoliberals. But right out of the get-go, you see the tactics that you use, the psyops that they're using to push buttons in people to be like, well, yeah, they're right. Brandon Johnson's going to be horrible. This man lost his son because Chicago's a hellhole, and Brandon Johnson's going to continue that. That's everything you just saw in this first minute of coverage, what they're telegraphing.
Yeah, with no evidence of what Brandon's going to be able to do. That at the time that they're doing this, he was just sworn in, or just before he was sworn in?
I think this was right before, about to be sworn in. This happened on Monday. They're asking people on Monday.
Yeah,
so
right.
Clearly, Brandon Johnson's going to be like Lori Lightfoot. Again, what a leap. The reason people voted for him is because they didn't want anybody like Lori Lightfoot. And he campaigned on a platform that indicated, from all appearances we're hoping for so far, he's going to be vastly different from her. All right, let's run it.
Again, I'm so sorry for your loss. We got a lot of folks here from the city of Chicago, right here in Naperville, that we're talking to. We got a young person here. He's 19 years old. Do you feel safe going into the city of Chicago?
Absolutely not. There's just about nothing being done for the crime rate. And so I wouldn't go alone with a friend, maybe with a big group, but definitely.
Pause it. Then fine.
How old is this guy?
19 years old, he said. Stay in Naperville then. You don't need to come into Chicago. It's a long trip. Stay where you're safe in Naperville and hide under your bed if that makes you feel safe too. Because again, leading with, do you feel safe? Brandon Johnson's going to be sworn in. Do you feel safe? And you know what's really absolutely disgusting about this, Ed? This is a black reporter dog whistling that a black mayor means that Chicago's not going to be safe.
Yeah, well, it's almost like he's giving him permission to be racist by asking him if he feels safe.
Yeah.
So it's extremely offensive for him to frame it this way.
And here's what Art shares. This is a setup. A producer in New York asked a producer in Chicago to seek and create content for reporting on our election and create a racial divide views on Fox. It's been staged.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Not going into the city alone.
Yeah. And that's a shame, because since I've been covering this issue and live in Chicago multiple times, I continue to hear the same thing from
live in Chicago. Where? You're in Naperville.
Yeah. What issue? All you're talking about is crime. You're not talking about the root causes of crime. You're not talking about all the shit we talk about till we're blue in the face here Tuesdays and Fridays on how you can reallocate resources to reach and save kids in underserved communities with opportunities, education, mental health, and other things that would make them more secure. But that doesn't, no, it's all performative, reactive. We have to feel safe. I talked to someone who kept insisting that the only way to change things was to throw more people in jail, because then those who would be inclined and tempted to commit crimes would realize that they could potentially go to jail. And I said, you're operating from the mindset that they feel like they have something to lose. They don't. You live in a North Side community. You've grown up differently. You've lived a different life where you do place a value on your life, and you know what you have to lose. A lot of kids that get involved in crime don't feel like they have anything to lose. So seeing someone go to jail, it's not going to stop them, because they've already been what's the word? Not trained. They've already been programmed to understand and feel that they don't matter. They don't matter. So why not go hook up with a gang that's going to give you some protection, maybe make you a little bit more money dealing drugs than if you got an extremely low-paying, ridiculously underwage job. And on top of that, you might come from a family where your parents suffered the same kind of neglect and abuse before you, that they don't know any better, and they're neglecting and abusing you as well. That's why criminals, they've got nothing to lose. They're desperate. So this mindset of like more cops, more people in jail is going to send a message to everyone who wants to commit crimes. Stop watching TV and movies. That's not how it works. If you grow up in a community that's neglected and left behind and abandoned, and you've lived your life from your childhood feeling like you don't matter, if the time comes where you need to make a moral call, like, do I do this to survive, or do I do things nice and continue to suffer? It doesn't matter, because they don't feel like they're valued anyway. All right, let's play the video.
From young people, they don't feel safe going into the city of Chicago, including downtown, which historically used to be safe. And we got Sabrina here. Hi, Sabrina. How you doing? All right. Thank you for being here. So you used to be in Chicago. You were born and raised there, and you decided to leave. Why?
It wasn't safe anymore.
Yeah.
Gee, you think there's a problem with safety?
Yeah.
You feel safe? Was it safe?
I don't feel safe. That was the slant of this Fox and Fiends segment. Go ahead, Ed. What were we going to say? I'm sorry.
I don't feel safe to continue the video. Should I feel safe? I don't know if I'm safe enough to press the button for the video to feel safe.
Andrew Golick shares, I've actually felt safer in Chicago than the suburbs, so the guy is totally a privileged douche. Feel safe in Naperville when there's a herd of buffalo just north of there that the indicator is something going oopsie. Technical term is the herd suddenly dying. Yeah, and Andrew also points out this: the homophobia and racism out in the suburbs is quite strong, some more than others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it travels in different suburbs. I would imagine Naperville must be one of the more racist ones, but I'm not going to paint with too broad of a brush. I have very good friends who are from Naperville originally, and they're not racist at all.
So look, also he's making sure to. I mean, there was one white douche before this woman, but you know, he's singling out and asking people of color, do you feel safe? Not what brought you to Naperville? Why are you here? Are you from Chicago? What did you like about Chicago? What didn't you like about Chicago? What's the lead question? Did you feel safe?
And this is and I'm just looking at the clock in the upper left on this video, and it's like almost 6 a.m. Central Time when he's doing this interview. So who's in this place at 6 a.m. Central Time, and why are they there?
Ladies and gentlemen of our viewing audience outside Chicago, I live here and I feel safe. And let me tell you something else. A month ago, I was working with a client on the South Side, 87th Street, going down there twice a week to work on a project I was editing. 1 week I went down there, The entire corner was cordoned with yellow tape because there'd been a gang shooting there. There had been a gun violence incident. Someone had gotten killed. I went to her house. I worked on editing the project. I left. I felt safe. Why? Because I was aware of my surroundings. I understood that it could happen on the north side. It could happen on the west side. Crime can hit you anywhere. It has nothing to do with where you're living. It has to do with being aware of your surroundings, being careful, being vigilant, getting in and out of places safely without living with this mindset I have to hide under my bed because I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I felt safe going back and forth because I was basically minding my business and being aware of what was going on to get in and out of places safe because I needed to rely on myself.
And I think it's also important to realize that, being safe and feeling safe are two different things. There are some people in the city who all they want is the worst authoritarian policies put in place so that they can, quote unquote, feel safe. Whether or not they actually are safe due to whatever these policies are that they want, leaves, we don't know. But it's probably more important to have a situation where everybody is safe rather than a handful of people feel safer.
And let me also quantify, Ed. I mentioned I was on the south side at 87th Street where there had been a shooting on the corner with a fatality. I live on the north side, a block away from Little India, and there have been 2 shootings in the alley a block away from me over the past, 3 in my surrounding blocks here over the past 2 years. And I still feel safe where I live. Again, Ed just made a great point. Are you safe, or is it about how you feel or what is and how you deal with it? You're never going to be completely safe. You live in a suburb and you feel safe because you live in a suburb. Newsflash, killings and shootings and bad things happen in suburbs too. But there's optics and a magnification on the city of Chicago. Yeah, because of the gun violence, obviously. I mean, we can't pretend that there isn't a epidemic of violence, especially as it relates to gun violence in the city or any major city across the United States. But this sense of like, we have to throw more money at the cops because they're going to put more people in jail. And then I'm going to feel safe knowing more people are thrown into jail because it's going to send a signal to other people not to commit crimes. Grow up. Grow up. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. You need to start focusing on how do you put policies and support and safety nets in place for younger people who might not learn any better because of the households that they live in, wherever they live. Someone said to me, well, it's because they don't have fathers in the house. Okay. So if they don't have fathers in the house, how are you going to solve that problem so that they've got a safety net with some kind of parental guidance? No answer. So stop. So, okay. So if the households don't have fathers in them, your solution is wait till they commit crimes and throw them in jail. Shouldn't it be? We recognize that there are a lot of kids, unfortunately, who don't have the right influences. So what do we do to help give them that safety net and give them the guidance that we hope that luckily we got as kids from our parents because we were lucky? You're going to say? I'm sorry.
I just had a brain fart. I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. Andrew Golick shares, and I'll share this until maybe you remember what you were going to say. I definitely felt much safer in Rogers Park with the one gunshot than I have ever around the significant conservative presence in Mount Prospect. Interesting. Yeah, why don't all those authoritarian types move out to Naperville or other suburbs? Look, we're not going to pretend that there isn't a horrible gun violence and crime epidemic in Chicago, but what Fox News is doing here has nothing to do with them wanting to solve the problems of crime or to save the victims of crime or gun violence. This is because a black guy got elected mayor, and they want to continue to perpetuate the fear porn that nothing's going to change because the white guy, the financial wizard who didn't really want it, who had all of his wealthy donors support him so that they could carve up the rest of the city for themselves, didn't win. Let's play the rest of the video. I feel safe playing it.
Okay.
I didn't feel comfortable or safe, so I had to leave.
So as you know, Brandon Johnson is being inaugurated today as the 57th mayor of Chicago. What do you think?
I don't think he'll do well, but I hope he can do something better than Lori Lightfoot.
All right, fair. Thank you for that.
Confidence in
Fair.
his ability to do better than Lori Lightfoot?
No.
Yeah. Why?
The things that he's been saying already, it doesn't seem like he's going to enforce any type of policies or anything to prevent violence. Or
What things has he been saying?
Yeah.
She clearly didn't see his interview that we shared from 10 years ago on Tuesday night.
It's
what she's referring to. She's referring to the radio interview where he referenced defunding the police, because that's all they ran with.
Yeah, or basically, I just remembered what I want. I saw this tweet on Twitter from a guy named Robert Durden, and part of his tweet says, "Is it the way you truly feel, or is it the way TV told you to feel? If you're not constantly doing this by asking yourself that, are you allowing your emotions to be programmed by propagandists?"
As Snork Y2K just shared, were these people brought in the place just for the interview?
Or a free breakfast?
Or did they vet them and ask people ahead of time? Did they select their interview subjects ahead of time to know the answers that they were going to get?
It's very possible.
Art says, I don't think the suburbs are just as safe. A cow ran wild around a suburb a couple of weeks back.
That's right. That was a pretty cool gag.
And the cow's name was Ellison Arwadi. Oh, wait a minute. Did I say?
No, it was Blossom.
It was Blossom. Sorry.
It was Blossom. I remember.
I'm being mean tonight. I'm sorry. Out with the garbage. Anyway, all right, let's continue the video.
Well, you heard it here first, and I got to tell you, we continue to hear the same thing about Brandon Johnson, and I'm scratching my head. How did he get elected? And a lot of folks here are doing the same. Back to y'all at the couch.
They live in Naperville. They couldn't even vote in the city. They're scratching their heads. They don't have to worry about it. Stay in Naperville, okay? Leave us alone.
Yeah, what a terrible framing. It just super lazy reporting.
Can you bring the next link up, Ed?
Yeah. Speaking of super lazy reporting.
Let me open it up on this end so I can read from it in a moment. Okay. So, as Ed almost spoiled.
Sorry about that.
All right. I'm just giving you shit. Leave it to Chicagoans to tell Fox News to shut the fuck up. Which is what I think we've said a couple times here also when referencing faux news, fake news, the real fake news. So this came from Mac Lederman. I love Ed. Why didn't we think of this?
Just too slow on the uptake, I guess. It's those t-shirt guys, those guys who make catchy t-shirts came up with the idea. It's like, of course, that's what they do.
I mean, I've come up with like funny ideas to like market things. Like I came up with those political playing cards during the Iraq War, and I'm thinking right now I got to come up with something catchy like this because it could really like save our necks financially. But
well, when we get the new merch shop up, we're gonna have some really interesting stuff to throw up on there.
All right, so here's from Mac Lederman at Blog Club Chicago, and God bless the Chicagoans who came up with this after that hit piece by Gianno Caldwell on Fox and Fiends. Chicagoans tell Fox News to shut the fuck up about Chicago with new t-shirts. The idea for the shirt was hatched amid a Twitter backlash to a Fox News segment on Chicago's new mayor, filmed more than 30 miles west of the city in suburban Naperville. And they serve the north and the south side. Shut the fuck up about Chicago from a Cubs
You don't live here.
You don't live here. And from the Sox perspective. And that was also really smart branding also to serve both sports teams. All right. Chicagoans are getting very tired of the haters. Despite the fact that Chicago is not even in the top 19 most violent cities per capita, Cable news personalities and a lot of people who don't live here or have never visited the city seem to be obsessed with our crime and our local politics. This week, a few fed-up Chicagoans decided to fight back by creating a new line of T-shirts that plead, "Shut the fuck up about Chicago." It started after Fox News aired a segment that you all saw interviewing people about Chicago's mayoral election filmed in suburban Naperville, more than 30 miles west of the city. The clip of Fox News correspondent Gianno Caldwell asking Naperville diners for their 2 cents on new Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson provoked widespread online mockery and rubbed a lot of us the wrong way. I wish Blog Club had also referenced the fact that he framed the question to every diner there, "Do you feel safe?" Because we just saw that. That's exactly what the agenda was. Rubbed a lot of us the wrong way, said Chicago marketer Matt Lindner, who tweeted about the interview. The situation was also ironic, given that Caldwell is from Chicago's South Side and previously scolded someone from Evanston for weighing in on the city.
Yeah.
Amid the backlash on Twitter, Alexis Bernardi-Rees, a senior manager in tech and a proud defender of Chicago, came up with the T-shirt idea. She texted Lindner, who ran with it. He tweeted that someone should make a T-shirt line and also texted a friend in the business, Anthony Hall, owner of Portage Park-based clothing company Hairbrained. Hall jumped on it, quickly making shirts featuring the phrase, "Now available here and here" in both Wrigley Field marquee and White Sox styles. A display of unity. Lindner said he hopes provocateur pundits get the message loud and clear. Chicago has been the punching bag for people of certain political persuasions, and it seems like every time something bad happens, it's happening here, Lindner said. Chicagoans are well aware of the fact our city is not perfect. There's a lot to be done to level the playing field. But if you're simply creating the narrative that it's a war zone without being constructive about solutions or how there's good people working on it, then shut the fuck up. Hall said the shirts have already been selling better than anything else we've made this past year. Good for them. It drives me nuts when anyone badmouths Chicago or talks about the end of Chicago, Hall said, so making the shirts has been super cathartic. Many who saw the Fox News segment questioned why Caldwell and Fox News didn't just ask people in Chicago about Chicago's election. But my hunch is they just want to go to places that would more likely fit their narrative, Lindner said. My wife is from Naperville. I appreciate the value of the suburbs and that Chicago is the economic engine for all of Illinois, but Chicago itself is not short of places where there are voters to talk to. I wouldn't give this interview if it was about Naperville's mayor. I don't even know who that is. Awesome. Then we've got some more reactions to the Fox segment. Jim Daly writes, Fox's correspondent got lost 30 miles and 6 suburbs away from Chicago, trying to get reactions to Mayor Brandon Johnson's election today. Morgan Elise Johnson, Chicagoans from all walks of life are coming together to light his ass up. Joel Miller, apologist. The fact they chose Naperville, which is consistently the one town that all Chicagoans use in their jokes about people not being from Chicago, is sheer poetry. Herb Lawrence, Gianno could have come to Chicago and found people of all different races that would have supplied him and the Fox viewers exactly the red meat they were looking for. Instead, he went to the literal city that most Chicagoans use as an example of suburbanites that aren't from Chicago.
Yeah, I would say Schaumburg is usually the one I would hear. It's like Naperville is kind of the more racist version of Schaumburg.
Renato Mariotti shared, as a Naperville resident, let me assure you that it doesn't resemble Chicago in any way, shape, or form. Going to Naperville to ask about the new Chicago mayor is like going to Delaware to ask residents about cheesesteaks for the Sixers.
Yeah.
Oh boy, and that's the end of that. Very amusing, but again, kudos to the creators of those T-shirts. I'm definitely going to go purchase one after we're out of the show. All right, so interestingly enough, speaking of do you feel safe, had Fox and Fiends waited a week after Mayor Johnson had taken office to see what his first steps would be regarding safety, they would have discovered that Mayor Johnson appointed Gary and Gatewood as the first ever deputy mayor of community safety. Whoa! What did we just hear in Naperville? He's not going to make anything safe. He's just going to carry on what one of his first acts in his first week in office.
Yeah.
He's appointed the first ever deputy mayor of community safety. And what does that mean? Gatewood, and this comes from the Office of the Mayor, chicago.gov, Gatewood to lead efforts addressing root causes of crime and violence in Chicago. Well, wait, what did it say, Ed?
Root causes? What could those be, Jerry?
Root causes. Hallelujah. Somebody's finally paying attention, or had always been paying attention. We just all had to deal with the speed bump that was known as, the speed bump that was known as Lori Lightfoot. Was she a speed bump or was she a pothole? You be the judge. All right. From the mayor's press office, today Mayor Brandon Johnson announced Garion Gatewood will serve as the city of Chicago's deputy mayor of community safety. As the first ever deputy mayor of community safety, Gatewood will lead cross-government efforts to eradicate the root causes of crime and violence and advance a comprehensive, oh my God, I feel like I'm about to pass out from the joy, comprehensive healing-centered approach to public safety. I'm not the praying type, Ed, but it feels like, I won't say our prayers were answered, our hopes though. We were always talking about healing-centered approach to public safety.
I think this is great news, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does and what they do going forward with this. I know it's going to be exciting in the next 30 days to see how many of those blocks we can tick off on the bingo card, on the Brandon bingo card. If you don't have your Brandon bingo card, head over to chicagocornertv.com, and near the top of the page there should be a link for the Brandon bingo card in the little Google Doc box on the thing. It'll say Brandon bingo, get your card. Can't check too many of them off right now though.
Ed, I'm about to just send you a link in the private chat that shares an image of Gary and Gatewood, so we can put that up while I read from the article. Okay,
that's not going to work.
Well, search.
Try that link again.
Well, that's exactly what's in the in my browser URL.
That's hold on. Let me see.
I Google searched Mr.
You pasted the text of a JPEG file.
Well, it's the link.
From what I can see. All right, let me see if I can turn that piece of text into an actual JPEG for you.
All you need to do is just Google search Gary and Gatewood so people can see what he looks like, see what we're talking about while I talk about it. Okay. Yeah, if you can bring that up, and then I'll continue with the article.
Yeah.
Building a safer Chicago means second paragraph. Building a safer Chicago means we must address the root causes of crime with a comprehensive approach. As my deputy mayor for community safety, I know Gary and Gatewood will help advance that vision and create safer neighborhoods in every corner of our city by investing in people, especially our youth, said Mayor Johnson. Garion's extensive record supporting at-risk young Chicagoans will be essential to achieving our vision for a safer city and will be invaluable to a holistic and healing-centered government response to violence. One other thing, Ed, as I continue reading this, and I didn't look ahead of time, but I'm thinking of it now. While I continue this, can you check YouTube and see if Mr. Gatewood had any kind of...
See if there's a video? Yeah, let me take a look.
Okay. Mr. Gatewood said, I am humbled by this opportunity to advance a holistic and comprehensive approach to community safety. He'll probably be saying what I'm sharing in the press release, but we'll see. Maybe there'll be something different. I've worked with the young people of Chicago for years, and I know that together we can deliver on a vision for a stronger, safer city that addresses the root causes of violence, provides support for youth and adults alike, and lifts up every neighborhood. Gatewood currently serves as the director of the Illinois Justice Project, where he's been a central figure in developing strategies to lift up youth and adults, providing support for returning residents, and helping to guide policy in support of the Illinois Safety Act. He will serve a key role in carrying Mayor Johnson's public safety vision with a focus on community engagement, I love this, and diversion programs. Diverting vulnerable at-risk kids into better directions. That's what I was just talking about a little while ago. In addition, Gatewood was appointed by Governor J.B. Pritzker to serve on the board of the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, the state agency that directs the development coordination of programs designed to enhance and improve public safety. Do you know what I feel like as I'm reading this story, Ed? I feel like it's the end of Return of the Jedi, and the Rebels won. The Rebels won. I know it's not going to be all perfect.
It's too soon. It's too soon, Jerry.
It's too soon. All right. Well, my bitter, cynical heart is actually like filled with some hope here, because what I'm seeing, though, Ed, to be very serious, is that after 2 administrations following Daley and Emanuel and Lightfoot that did nothing but drive Chicago further into the ditch, we have some people here who are speaking to the solutions we've been begging for and hoping for on this program, and across progressive and populist groups all across Chicago for both Rahm and Lightfoot's the length of both Emanuel and Lightfoot's administrations. So yeah, I mean, let's feel some victory here. The good guys finally won for once, and we hope that they will carry forward on their promises. Although it's not going to be easy, it's not a step in the right direction, Ed. It's a leap in the right direction that you've got somebody speaking to these issues that no one else was. Palos Paul wasn't talking about it. I've never heard anything from the Fraternal Order of Police or Lori Lightfoot on these matters. Healing-centered government response to violence. In addition, Gatewood was appointed, okay, I read that paragraph. Prior to his role as director of the Illinois Justice Project, Gatewood was director of policy at the Juvenile Justice Initiative, a nonprofit focusing on legislation and policy reform for youth in Illinois. Gatewood holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Jackson State University and a law degree from the University of Mississippi School of Law. The new role of Deputy Mayor for Community Safety was established by Mayor Johnson on his first day in office as part of his first 4 executive orders. Okay, so we can X out an executive order because this has just happened and it's actually carried through. He didn't talk about it. It's not going to happen. It's happened. So we can cross that off on our Brandon bingo cards.
Okay.
As part of his first 4 executive orders, EO 2023-17 calls on the deputy mayor to be responsible for coordination and communication between all applicable city departments and officials related to the city's efforts to eradicate the root causes of crime, violence, and harm, and to advance a holistic and comprehensive approach to community safety. Now, Ed mentioned the Brandon bingo card. Ed, have you shared that link in the chat?
Give me 1 second, Jerry.
Ladies and gentlemen watching live and watching later, you need to download your very own Brandon bingo card. And as we update it and X off things that Mayor Johnson has moved forth with, the first viewer of the show that gets Brandon bingo, which means you get 5 across the top, 5 across at an angle, or 5 across down, you will win a prize from Chicago Corner. We don't know what it is yet, okay? But I'm telling everybody. And we're also going to put a promo video on our YouTube page as well as our Twitter and our Facebook. Download your Brandon bingo card and keep up, as Ed just did. Because
I posted the direct link into the chat, but if you just head over to ChicagoCornerTV.com. You'll see a link to the Brandon bingo card right at the top.
We don't know what the price. I mean, we just came up with this last night when we were talking with Kira in our weekly meeting. We're like, Ed created the great Brandon bingo card after we were talking about it on the program last week. Leave it to Ed. Boom, it's done. But then we realized, okay, there's a real opportunity here. Let's engage our viewers to download the card. It's not just a gag that Ed came up with for the program. You all need to play Brandon bingo. And since we just came up with the idea of a prize being offered last night, we have to figure out what's going to be valuable to our viewers that get Brandon bingo. And once Brandon bingo, one of our viewers gets Brandon bingo, we will then recycle new issues on the card for a new winner in the second month of his administration. Isn't this fun? Don't you love this viewer engagement?
I think this is going to be fun for us.
Yeah.
I just hope that he gets a lot of stuff taken care of in the first month, or at least a lot of things that we are hoping are going to show up on the card.
We're also hoping that once all of you good, fine viewers out there start playing Brandon bingo and sharing it on social media, it will get Mayor Johnson's attention to perhaps carve out 5 minutes from his schedule to come on the program and join us. Maybe longer. We know he's got a lot on his plate, and we know he's going to be very, very busy. But you can't help but wonder if he wouldn't appreciate what we're doing here in support of his administration and his leadership, and maybe give us a few minutes of his valuable time to just say hello, congratulate him, and talk about some of these issues that are on the Brandon Bingo card that we also presented to him during the Copernicus Mayoral Forum last December, I think it was, with our Chicago Corner Manifesto. I actually have the interview with him. I forgot. I was honored to do an interview with him. I should repost that on our page and social media. Back when I was endorsing somebody else who I was completely wrong about. So anyway, I'm glad I was wrong and the right guy won. That's all I got to say now.
Yeah, so we got the executive order on the box there. Is there anything else we can tick off yet? I don't think so.
Let's see.
Everything else is still kind of in progress, I think.
Well, he's talked about restoring the mental health clinics, but we're not Xing that until we actually see that start or that begin. So not yet. We can't do that yet. Migrant support. We have a story later in the show that's an update, but I don't know that.
Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, it's like they're
figure it out.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to talk.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're soon going to click on undo a Lightfoot policy, and it's probably going to be one of those executive orders. Hopefully, we'll soon be able to do that.
Yeah. So just so you guys all know, everybody has fixed the potholes in the center square. All the other ones are the same, but they're in different locations. So you pull up a Brandon Bingo card on your browser at home, it's probably going to be a different one from the one you see on the screen right now.
Yeah. Fire Dorval Carter. I love that. It's hilarious. All right. So there you go, everybody. Before we jump into our next story, make sure to download your Brandon Bingo card, play along, and hopefully next week we'll have figured out what the prize will be for the first Brandon Bingo winner. And we're also going to ask you, after you download it, share it on social media and tell your friends to play along with us here at Chicago Corner.
Yeah, and I guess when you get 5 across or diagonally or down, take a screenshot and send it to us.
Yeah.
So that we can see it. Because I don't know if I know how to load up all the different ones here. I just hit the link and it loads up card number 4 for me over here. But I just realized, like, I loaded the card up on my office computer and it gave me card number 9. So and if you guys want to share which card number you have in the live chat, that's cool too. I just won't know what that one looks like.
You won't get this kind of viewer engagement on other local Chicago indie news channels.
No, it'll be much more intelligent.
And fun.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say intelligent,
no,
but definitely more fun. I don't want to.
No, yeah. So good to see everybody in the live chat. I know I didn't say hello to everybody today. We saw Kathy and Snork Y2K and Virend and Arturo, and I saw Gabo. And I said Andrew Gamer for Life is in the chat. Good to see you, bud.
Who else is out there? Chime in beyond everybody we've just mentioned. I want to know who all these 14 people are. Just say, hey guys, hey Ed and Jerry, let's see what pops up.
Oh, and by the way, when you guys head over to ChicagoCornerTV.com, scroll down to the viewer poll and tell us how you're watching us. Just select one of the options there. I think we're on YouTube and Odyssey and Rock. Well, Odyssey I think might be archived at this point. We're not streaming there yet. But YouTube and Rockfin, we're streaming live. We're streaming live to Twitter, Facebook. Are we still streaming to LinkedIn, I think?
Yes.
What your LinkedIn, Jerry?
Yeah, I got to create a Chicago Corner on LinkedIn too. Hey, everybody. Right. Mac is chiming in. Miguel H. Hey. Cool. Yeah, Ed shared with me, because I hadn't looked at our Rockfin channel for a while. We've got more I think we have more subscribers on Rockfin than YouTube.
Yeah, we got like 1,900 and something followers over there.
Which shocks me because I've never done a whole lot to promote our Rockfin. So we're going to put up another survey soon on our Chicago Corner webpage as well as social media. I'd like to know how people found us on either Rockfin or YouTube, or what, especially our Rockfin viewers. We'll figure out how to phrase that survey, but I'm really curious because we don't have the same amount of viewers on Rockfin, but the fact we've got more followers, first of all, I'm like really humbled and thankful for that. But I'm just curious, how did people find us on Rockfin to follow us, that we've got that much of a following? Are there any comments yet on Rockfin tonight?
I don't see any in there. That's why I was kind of surprised at all the followers we have, because it's rare. Occasionally, we'll get a couple people in there talking, and some of them will send us what do they call, the super rays or the ray tokens tips over there. But usually it's an empty chat room, probably just because their chat functions probably not as good as the YouTube one or the Facebook ones.
Okay.
But thanks for watching wherever you're watching from.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party, pal.
All right, let's get our next story prepared. So, of course, this came from, oh, wait a minute. Do I have them in the right order?
Which one do you want first?
The Cranes article. I think I may have linked it improperly on my end.
The 12 billion one?
No, I got it. I got it open. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any question regarding Crane's editorial slant, what their agenda is, they decided to run this article this week, which we will joyously be able to derail in a subsequent article we're going to read from. He's going to tax everybody. He's going to tax everybody out of the city. Nobody is going to be able to afford to live here anymore. I saw this headline and I thought, well, good. Maybe it's about time that the 1% start paying their share.
Yeah,
Twitter.
I already can't afford to live here, Jerry. I can't imagine he's going to be hitting me much harder than he's going to be hitting people in a much higher pay scale.
Well, a lot of people on Twitter started saying, well, he's going to be hitting people who are making $100,000. And, that is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But he should be focusing on taxing those that are making far more than that. Plus, I shared when I saw this Cranes article, what he should be focused on, and that's the LaSalle Street transaction tax, which I don't know that he's talked about or addressed at all, which would be a huge, huge boon to solving a lot of the city's budget issues and shortfalls.
Yeah, not sure how legal that would be, and I think there's another. We got another story we can talk about later.
He could sign an executive order.
Yeah,
isn't that what executive orders are for?
But there's another story in the show notes I just noticed that'll address that. So
right, all right. So this came to us from Cranes. Greg Hins at Cranes. Johnson allies push $12 billion financial package, including wealth and income taxes. Now, I'm going to read the original story before we go to the update, because the original story was hilarious in that they didn't actually talk to Mayor Johnson's office for a comment before they ran with the fear point that everybody's going to be taxed out of the city. So let's go with the original story as it was reported on, let's see, this was 2 days ago on the 17th, and only updated an hour ago today on the 19th. Allies of Mayor Brandon Johnson today are allies, not administration members, allies of Mayor Brandon Johnson today are rolling out a $12 billion financial proposal that doubles down on controversial tax hike ideas pitched by Johnson during his campaign and adds a few more, including enactment of a city wealth tax and income tax, deep cuts in police spending, and an effective end to all tax increment financing projects. Authors of the proposal, which also include a tax on vacant high-end rental apartments. Okay, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And vacant high-end rental apartments that somebody paid a lot of money for and hopes to
high-end charge
people a lot of money. Right, yeah. High-end means it's apartments we can't even imagine living in, ladies and gentlemen. So that's not that's not some middle-class rental property owner.
Yeah.
We're talking about like, $100,000 a month type rentals. Okay. If that.
Or even if it's like 5,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, most people, most rents are just ridiculously high for people. I mean, where like a 1 or 2 bedroom is like between $1,600 and $2,000 a month for some people.
Yeah. Andrew Golick shares, it's like over $1,000 a month for renting a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in my hometown of Mount Prospect.
Yeah. That's suburbs. That's northwest suburbs.
Yeah. All right. So we just mentioned high-end rental apartments say they're not fronting for Johnson and suggest they are trying to hold his feet to the fire and push him to stand by his campaign promises in a way they believe former Mayor Lori Lightfoot did not. Whatever the motivation, the proposals potentially affect not only businesses, but hundreds of thousands of middle-class Chicagoans as well as suburban residents who work in the city.
There are no middle-class Chicagoans anymore. They're gone.
It comes in the same week CME Group Chief Terry Duffy threatened to move his exchange out of town if Chicago's tax situation turns toxic. Mr. Duffy, get the fuck out. Take your exchange and leave. Okay?
He's not
You're not doing badly here. Okay, that you can't afford to pay a little bit more of a fair share. That we'll get to in the following article, the follow-up article. The report is titled, First We Get the Money, $12 billion to fund a Just Chicago. It comes from the Action Center on Race and Economy and the People's Unity Platform. Read the full proposal below in the Cranes article. Both groups have strong ties to the Chicago Teachers Union, for which Johnson worked as a paid organizer until shortly before the election, and which was the biggest backer of his campaign. They say that they print that like it's a bad thing. For instance, CTU President Stacey Davis Gates serves on the Acre Board, and her chief advisor has been named as one of Johnson's deputy mayors. Report co-author Saqib Bhatti serves on Johnson's transition team, with a seat on the Economic Vitality and Equity subcommittees. And the People's Unity Platform is a joint project of CTU and another strong Johnson ally, the Grassroots Collaborative. Communities that invest in their people are safe communities, the report asserts, echoing one of Johnson's major campaign themes. Yeah. That's a good campaign theme. Once again, communities that invest in their people are safe communities. What do you disagree with?
Yeah, you see, this is a Cranes Chicago business article, Jerry. And so anything that isn't pro-business, pro-capitalism, and doesn't find a way to suck all of the life and resources out of everything is the enemy, Jerry.
As Paul Vallis was going to do. The proposals in this report would generate $12 billion in new revenue and savings that we could invest in our people and neighborhoods. Sounds like a good idea to me. Some of that money would come from ideas Johnson put on the table during the campaign, included reinstating the head tax of $33 per worker on companies with at least 50 workers, netting $106 million a year.
Okay.
Boosting from 5 cents to 14 cents the tax per gallon on jet fuel used at Chicago's airports, raising $96 million. I'm not going to feel bad for the airlines if you're going to.
No, but what happens is then the airlines just tack that on as a fuel fee to make your expensive airfare ticket even more expensive.
Raising the real estate transaction fee on sales of at least $1 million by 1.9 percentage points, a move that the group estimates could generate $163 million. Added to that list are several major items. The first is a move to impose a city income tax of 3.5% on any household with an income above $100,000 a year. This tax would apply to both Chicago residents and money made by suburbanites employed in the city, and would yield an estimated $2.1 billion a year. See, that's something that I wonder, Ed, if that's lawful. How do you impose? I guess it would come out of their paychecks if you're working in the city and you pass this 3.5% income tax increase. Anybody who's working in the city, their company would then take that percentage out for the city, I guess is how that would work.
It's good question. I guess the payroll departments would have to figure that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The group bills this tax as a levy on high earners. U.S. Census Bureau data indicate that the average Chicagoan household now has an annual income of $100,347.
Gee, I wish I was them.
I wish. Median income is less at $65,781 to $80,511 among households headed by someone aged 25 to 41, meaning that at least a third of city residents would end up paying at least some city income tax if the group's proposal goes through. Body in a phone interview said the trade-off is worth it. People want good services, and if you want those, there's a cost you have to pay up, he said. Beyond that, shifting to an income tax would reduce pressure on the property tax, he said. Another $960 million would come from the 0.4% annual wealth tax on the richest 10% of Chicagoans. The report's co-author, Gabriella Noah Betancourt, said she does not have adequate background data to say how much someone would have to be worth to pay the tax, but stresses that the only personal liquid assets like stock holdings would be covered, with retirement accounts and real estate exempt.
Basically, they're taxing the Pritzkers.
Yeah. In Philadelphia, a similar proposal would apply to those with income of as little as $120,000, according to reports there. In Illinois, a similar levy proposed by State Representative Will Guzzardi, Democrat of Chicago, would only apply to those with assets worth at least $1 billion. A new digital ad tax of 13% would apply to bills for online advertising.
Boo.
Betancourt said it would apply to companies with at least $25 million in digital ad revenue. Okay, so
never mind. That's fine.
With only 9 large corporations now hitting that mark, including Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Twitter, all of whom can afford to pay. The tax on luxury apartment vacancies would apply to landlords who own more than 20 units with rents above the city average. If the unit involved sat empty for more than 12 months and more than 3 units were vacant, the property owner would have to pay the equivalent of rent to the city. Body said the intent is to pressure landlords into lowering rents to more affordable levels. So there's a method to that madness, clearly. And the plan includes a tax of $1 to $2 on financial transactions on the CME and other financial exchanges, with the city getting at least $2 billion. So there's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. That's what I was talking about, the transaction tax, financial transaction tax. So that's included in this proposal.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Cranes article goes on and on and on. I could go on. However, as I mentioned at the top of the story, that there was an update to this story. A top aide to Mayor Brandon Johnson sought to distance the mayor from the proposal, saying Johnson had no input into the recommendations.
So,
and let me bring that article up on this end before we pop it up. Oh, but before we get to the Johnson's ally, get Johnson's aide responding to this article, there was another article of the aforementioned CME Group CEO Duffy threatening. He says the exchange is prepared to leave Chicago if we had to. Temper tantrums, ladies and gentlemen. CME Group is prepared to leave Chicago if the city and state take steps that are perceived as ill-conceived, quote unquote. Chief Executive Officer Terry Duffy said in an interview. Duffy's remarks made in an episode of the Odd Lots podcast come as Mayor Brandon Johnson is being sworn into office. So this was Monday. After proposing additional taxes, including one on financial transactions, which is exactly what I think they should go for. Because these financial transaction tax proposals, Ed, it's not going to make anybody poor. Do you know how many transactions filter through the Board of Trade all day long, every day of the week? To help the city's revenue.
I think they mentioned in the article, I don't know if you're going to read.
That plan was fiercely opposed by Chicago's exchanges and investment firms because they just got to rack in every goddamn last penny and dime. A higher levy would also require state approval to pass. He says, Mr. Johnson has no legal authority to impose a transaction tax on my business, adding that fighting crime should be the bigger focus for the new mayor. There we go. Fighting crime. Get on your cowl and your cape. He also shouldn't get too bogged down on how he's going to short-term think he's going to raise taxes on certain people in order to fit his agenda. What? The agenda of equity and actually being able to reallocate resources to help people who've been left behind you dickhole.
Hey, Jerry, before you read the next paragraph, you may want to spike your Coca-Cola with just a little bit of something.
Well, I don't have any Coca-Cola or nearby.
Okay. All right. I'm just saying, I'm giving you a trigger warning now.
Uh-oh. Okay. Oh, I see. Duffy's remarks may add pressure on a new mayor who's promised a slate of progressive reforms. Progressive reforms. What's the opposite of progressive?
Congress.
I always say regressive.
Oh, that too.
Okay. As he contends with a recent exodus of financial firms from one of America's best-known trading hubs, Citadel founder Ken Mayo Griffin last year announced he was ditching Chicago for the sunlit uplands of Miami. And we all know why he did that, because he thinks Ron DeSantis is going to run for president, and he can help donate to that campaign and become Secretary of the Treasury. So he puts himself in charge like a fox in charge of a henhouse, is what Ken Griffith's long-term agenda is.
And also, as the hedge weasel that he is hedging his bets on the possibility he may get federally indicted because of all the shenanigans going on in the dark pools with the naked shorting, which is illegal, by the way, but they're doing it anyway. And Ken, if with a house in Florida, if they indict him, he can still keep his house.
Well, I'd say the bigger problem there, too, Ed, is this rat fuck Gary Gensler, who is as complicit and in bed with the hedge funds on Wall Street because he and all of his buddies have jobs waiting for them after they're finished serving at the SEC. That's why these hedge funds and banks on Wall Street get away with all this all the time, because it's a revolving door between the SEC and Wall Street. This is not a free and fair market. It is a rigged casino.
Yeah, and so what they're basically doing is they're doing these threats and saying that they have these already contracted agreements with the people they're leasing buildings from in Chicago, that if they have things that aren't fair to them, they can leave or get out of their lease or whatever. And I'm thinking, this guy's not going anywhere. Rich people aren't going anywhere, because even if they have to pay more taxes, it's a status thing to be able to live in the rich parts of Chicago. They don't care.
Yeah, they don't. Well, look, we've heard what CME Group CEO Duffy is kicking and screaming about. I do have the stories in the wrong order in the show notes, Ed. So can you go to the link that says "First We Get the Money"? Because that's what I'm going to read from next.
Yeah, I'll put that up.
Okay. So transitioning through this topic.
Okay.
Now, this was reported by the Sun-Times, and this is why the Cranes article had to backpedal the fear porn on their page. The quote, "First we get the money, read the controversial plan to read $12 billion in new revenue for Chicago." Report co-author Saqib Badi said Chicago can know this was their intention. Saqib, I'm not sure if that's a gentleman or a woman, so I'm just going to say them there. Report co-author Saqib Badi said Chicago can no longer be held hostage, because that's exactly what we saw Duffy threatening there. If I don't get my way, we're going. We're leaving. We're taking our hedge fund or our brokerage or whatever the fuck it was, his exchange, away from Chicago, and we're going to punish you. Saqib Badi said Chicago can no longer be held hostage by businesses that want to be showered with tax breaks and threaten to leave when asked to pay for more, because that's exactly what this guy Duffy was doing. This comes from Catherine Odom and Fran Spielman at the Sun-Times. A new report outlines how Chicago can raise $12 billion in revenue with a slew of tax increases as well as some budget cuts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We just reported on it. The report issued Wednesday was co-authored by Saqib Badi, a member of Johnson's transition team, and Gabriella Noah Betancourt. Badi said Chicago can no longer be held hostage by businesses that want to be showered with tax breaks and threaten to leave when asked to pay more. The greatest tax burden right now is on small businesses and poor families, he said, because we don't make the wealthy and major corporations pay their fair share, which is what these proposals addressed. Badi made no apologies for aiming high and including controversial ideas that demand what he called political courage to pursue. "We're not going to win these things without a fight," Badi said Wednesday. "Entrenched interests and the business community are aligned against us in a major way, which is why they were all throwing money at Paul Vallis." So the idea that we shouldn't be ambitious to me is just political malpractice. One of the recommended cuts is reducing the Chicago Police Department's $1.94 billion budget by 9%.
Sorry.
9%, or $174 million out of a $1.94 billion budget, and not filling about 1,700 department vacancies. Over the past 10 years, 38% of Chicago's budget has gone towards policing, and it hasn't actually made us safer. Is there someone listening to our show over there?
No, I think we just have a lot more like-minded individuals in the city than we thought, Jerry.
Yeah, you're probably right. They're not paying attention to us. If throwing more, I'm serious. If throwing more money at the police department made us safer and safer, we'd be one of the safest cities in the country. Wait a minute. I said that months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
You know I did. That's like, okay, well, let's just say great minds think alike. We would have seen crime plummet over the last decade or so. That hasn't happened. That's the end of the article. So now, and that's Body basically, doubling down and clarifying what the point of that proposal was. Now, here's what Cranes had to backpedal on in their update to their story that we read from at the top.
Oh, not the Sun-Times one.
Well, it is a Sun-Times one.
It is.
1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's Johnson administration distances itself from the $12 billion tax plan co-written by transition team member. Now, it was proposed, but it was not something that Johnson's team, I guess, presented or said they were going to enact. It was a proposal. The plan by the Action Center on Race and the Economy and the People's Unity platform has nothing to do with what we're trying to do, said Jason Lee, a senior advisor to Mayor Brandon Johnson. The mayor's approach, Lee said, involves a sober analysis of what might be feasible. Well, hopefully they will see in their sober analysis that a lot of what was proposed in that plan is feasible with the political courage that was mentioned in that other article, in that other quote. This comes from Fran Spielman at the Sun-Times. Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration on Wednesday distanced itself from a new proposal to raise up to $12 billion in annual revenue, enough to provide property tax and pension relief, free CTA service, and childcare by taxing income and wealth, making big business pay more and dramatically reducing police spending. I don't think those are bad proposals, but let's get further into it. We put out a plan that we had to argue about internally 100 different times. It was about $800 million. This is $12 billion, so it has nothing to do with what we're trying to do, Johnson's senior advisor Jason Lee told the Sun-Times. The final amount was based on our kind of sober analysis of what might be feasible. Their employee head tax is proposed to raise $100 million a year. Our head tax was proposed to raise $20 million a year. They raised $2 billion off the income tax alone. We didn't have an income tax in our plan. We didn't think that was the right thing to do. They have a wealth tax. We don't have a wealth tax. I would say, why not split the difference? I don't think they should raise the income tax, but I do think that they should raise the wealth tax on that 1% that Body was proposing in that other article. Saqib Body, a member of Johnson's transition team, co-wrote the report and made no apologies for including controversial ideas that demand what he called political courage to pursue. There's a history. You elect someone like President Obama, then the left demobilizes and the business community swoops in and gets what they want. Progressives have learned this lesson over and over again, that it doesn't serve us well to demobilize after you elect somebody. Body, co-executive director of ACRE, said Wednesday. I wonder how long Body's going to be on the transition team.
That is a good question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the transition team. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should be kicked off, but got courage. I'm going to look up if it's a gentleman or because I don't like saying there if I don't know what gender they are. It's a gentleman. Okay, so I can say he. Yeah, I don't think he should be kicked off the transition team because he does have the political courage to say this stuff. This comment about Obama, good for him. Because this is what Obama made a lot of promises, and then suddenly the left demobilized because Obama had to be pragmatic, right? He had to engage and he had to welcome robust policies from Wall Street and the business community.
Well, to be fair, he dismantled his campaign team and then went with a whole bunch of bankers and picked half or more than half of Citibank for his cabinet.
Goldman Sachs gave him a list of who he should fill his cabinet with. Timothy Geithner, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
In a while, keeping track of those ghouls. So Boddy went on to say, we're not going to win these things without a fight. Entrenched interests and the business community are aligned against us in a major way. So the idea we shouldn't be ambitious, to me, is just political malpractice, he said. And I think he's right. What do you think, Ed?
I don't know. I don't have a fully formed opinion on this yet because I'm like, I was fine with the 12 billion as long as the people who have it coming get taxed out of being billionaires, because we shouldn't have billionaires. That's a policy failure.
Kathy asked, did we pay money for the BS Cranes article? Of course.
We did.
No, we
didn't.
We did. No, we went to the archive. It's news. It's
paid money for my internet connection. Is that close enough?
It is. We paid for our internet connection. We went to the Internet Archive and we pulled the article from there, Kathy. So you can be what's the word? Gratified that we did not pay Cranes for the BS article. All right, so back to the Sun-Times article, though. The report shocked an already skittish business community, not only for the politically explosive revenue ideas it contains, but also because the groups behind it have ties to the Chicago's teachers union, where Johnson served as a paid organizer.
They're trying to make everything look like it's, this guy's in cahoots with this other guy and they're all bad, being evil because they want to make us pay our fair share, and that cuts into our profits.
The Chicago's teachers union that wanted to reopen schools and hire more teachers to take care of the kids and provide the kind of support that a lot of kids don't get in their homes.
Yeah, and they're trying to put parity with that and corporate interests. Who are all about getting their own personal tax breaks and padding their own pockets and their own profit margins at the expense of everyone else.
And shutting down more schools and opening more private schools where they can select the students that they enroll and make the money off the city that should be going into keeping the schools open and hiring more teachers.
Yeah. And by the way, it's those people who are angry about not being able to get their private school vouchers anymore. We shouldn't be using public funds for private schools.
Nope. So Catholic schools and religious schools go send your kids there. It's a private school. It's a business. And you're fully within your rights to do that. If you don't if you're not happy with, and you know what? Instead of not being happy with Chicago public schools, you should be demanding better from city government to provide it.
Yeah.
The solution is not to punish some kids with shitty schools because you can afford to send your kid to a better school. The solution and the demand should be schools should be equal and supportive to all kids across the city. Because if you have an equitable school system that cares for each kid and instructs and teaches each kid the same way, you're going to have a lot more smarter kids than dumb ones or uneducated ones or left behind ones that might potentially gravitate to crime. Some of the ideas, including a revived employee head tax, a financial transaction tax, and higher taxes on high-end home sales and jet fuel, already are among the $800 million in new or increased taxes Johnson has proposed to fund the social programs that form the cornerstone of his anti-violence strategy. But there are dramatic differences. Johnson's proposed financial transaction tax is minuscule compared to the $1 or $2 per trade the group proposes. Well, you know what, Ed? That's where Johnson's wrong. We've been this financial transaction tax was proposed 2 elections ago. And I don't care how much the financial transaction or the exchanges don't like it. Tough titty. They can afford it. I would say that, enacting that will solve a lot of the city's budget problems. But you've got the rich elites who don't want to pay whatever the percent. I recall when I first read about the financial transaction tax, if I'm remembering correctly, and it could have changed since then, but they were talking about a penny per transaction.
Yeah.
Just a transaction. It's not a percentage of what the trade is, a penny per transaction, which adds up to a lot of money when you know how many transactions happen.
With the high-speed traders, it would,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, a penny per transaction. I can file a transaction for $100, or I can file a transaction for several $100,000 or several million. 1 penny per transaction. We know that those transactions are more than the hundreds of thousands and millions. But these motherfuckers down on LaSalle Street and the financial exchanges, a penny per transaction, if that's what they were still proposing, if that's the standard by which I recall they were proposing, they were kicking and screaming about that.
Of course.
8 years ago. No, 12 years ago. 12 years ago.
I don't know if I'd put all my eggs into the Wall Street transaction tax basket, though. Just because you know that these guys will do whatever they can to figure out a way around it. They'll just come up with some technological solution or some other solution where they have they set up some system that keeps them from having to pay. So I don't. While I think that we definitely need to find a way to get money out of all the rich jerks and hedge weasels who keep siphoning all the money out of these economies, I'm not sure what that solution is, unless we make it something that's palatable to them, that they won't, or at least tolerable to them, to that they won't look for ways to actively try to avoid it. So
I look at Ed, as retail investors, let's talk about the financial sector really quickly. As retail investors, although a lot of people use free platforms that they think, I don't have to be charged for my transaction, they actually are through payment for order flow.
Yeah.
Their trades are being routed to companies that then are the market makers that are making money off their trade to then redirect into dark pools and completely manipulate the market. So when I know
it's like the reverse version of what they were proposing.
But when I know retail investors are getting hit much more than a penny per transaction, and we're talking about if that is still modeled that way, that's why I lean more towards, could they thwart this? Could they somehow subvert it? Maybe. But I still think it's a good start to examine and start holding them accountable, because that's not a lot of money. It's a lot of money when it adds up, but it's not unreasonable to propose what that cost is per transaction in the beginning to people who have more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. Art in the chat shares. Art, I know for a fact, I really don't. Well, I think it's decent speculation that this next generation will be surviving without a full education of any basic knowledge. Their knowledge will be based off social media, which is not good. Yeah.
Oh, I like his next comment. Can I read that one?
Sure.
What corruption in Chicago needs is a Ponzi scheme that will be fully disastrous for all of us. Wait, that's not good.
So Johnson's proposed financial transaction tax is minuscule compared to the $1 or $2 per trade the group proposes. All right. So they're talking about $1 or $2 per trade now. I'd say, you know what? Go less.
Yeah.
If that's too much for them, then go less. At least you know how much money it's going to make with the amount of transactions that filter through the exchanges every day. All right. Other ideas such as a 3.5% tax on city income over $100,000 and 0.4% wealth tax on the stock holdings and personal liquid assets of the top 10% of Chicago's most wealthy residents, as Ed mentioned earlier, the Pritzkers, have been rejected by Johnson. His plan has no digital advertising tax. The new plan sets it at 13%, nor does Johnson support a tax on luxury apartment vacancies with the goal of driving down rents. There are also clear-cut differences on city spending. The report recommends phasing out all TIF districts, permanently eliminating all 1,700 police vacancies and reducing the Chicago Police Department's $1.94 billion budget by 9% more, or $174 million. Johnson initially campaigned on a promise to cut police spending by $150 million, even after promoting 200 more detectives, by reducing the number of police supervisors, canceling the ShotSpotter gun detection contract, closing the Home and Square police facility, and abolishing the error-filled gang database. For months, Johnson pointedly refused to commit to fully funding the police department's $1.94 billion budget or filling police vacancies. But after mayoral challenger Paul Vallis hammered Johnson during the campaign for supporting the concept of defunding the police, Johnson promised not to cut one penny from the police budget. We're looking at ways we can direct resources within the police budget to things that we think might contribute to more safety. We think we can beef up the detective ranks in investigative capacity, Lee said. Interim police superintendent Fred Waller's coming in with a lot of great ideas for the summer. We're going to put that out. We've not talked about eliminating vacancies, and we've definitely been clear that we're not reducing the budget, Lee said. Jack Lavin, CEO of the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, said Johnson's post-election conversations with business leaders have convinced Lavin of the new mayor's flexibility and his more reasoned approach to new taxation. His plan does not include a city income tax. He doesn't plan to cut one penny from the CPD budget. Springfield has no appetite for a financial transaction tax. So again, they're so horribly wrong about that. I think, okay, it's all opinion. I'm not a journalist. That's just my opinion. So we need to wait and see what the mayor's proposals are before we react, then see how the mayor's proposals address things like current obligations, Lavin said, of the $37 billion pension crisis and the $700 million funding cliff for mass transit.
Oh, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, yeah, he's going to have his own slant on what he thinks Johnson will and won't do.
Now he's talking about Body's proposal. Now going back into demonizing all of it, what this group proposes will increase taxes on costs on every Chicagoan and every business. No, it won't. No, it won't. It's a select range. You're broad stroking to scare everybody. Now, maybe Body's plan does go too far, but maybe they aimed really high, thinking that they could kind of come down to a middle ground compromise too. Keep that in mind. You always start with everything you want, understanding that the other side's not going to go for it, so you can get somewhere to the middle.
Yeah, most of us should understand by now that you never negotiate from the middle. This is one of the huge mistakes that the Democratic Party always does, is they try to negotiate from the middle and then settle for less than what they wanted, and then nobody's even close to happy except for the guys who didn't want it in the first place. You can't do that. You gotta ask, like Jerry said, you gotta ask for what you want. Sometimes you gotta ask for more than what you want, so that you end up compromising closer to the position you really are willing to end up with.
Story of my life. I've always been making proposals from the middle. I'm going to have to follow my own advice. It appears we have a comment on Rockfin. Ed, can you check that out?
Yes. We got $2 from Dominic Palella. Thanks, from constituentpolling with the G.org. How much we pay in taxes and how our tax money is spent is not a U.S. constitutional right that citizens have. Constituent polling can give us a right to participate in government decisions instead of having them being made solely by our political representatives. However, we have to find honorable people to accept constituent polling first. Learn about constituent polling on constituentpolling.org. And he corrected it with the G in there. So
thanks, Dominic.
I think we got a link to him in our links section on the website at chicagocornertv.com.
Now, Lavin went on to say, I said the first part of it. What this group proposes will increase taxes on costs on every Chicagoan and every business. If that causes businesses to leave, if that hurts getting people back into office to generate economic activity in the central business district and neighborhood corridors, if it leads to job loss, then that's just having the city going backward. Body countered that Chicago, and he said this in the other article, can no longer be held hostage by businesses that want to be showered with tax breaks and threaten to leave when asked to pay more. The greatest tax burden right now is on small businesses and poor families, he said, because we don't make the wealthy and major corporations pay their fair share. So the article is linked in that Body's proposal is linked in the Sun-Times. Am I looking at the Sun-Times article? Yeah, if you scroll down, and it's in the show notes, so you can check that out there. Just interesting turn of events with how Crane's presented it without talking to Johnson's representatives first, and Johnson's representative Lee clarifying things for everybody. All right, this is it's kind of an update, but with a new slant. As soon as I can open it up, it's a new story, but it repeats a horrible pattern.
Yeah.
By this.
Oh, I see. My brother Bill is in the chat. Hey, Bill, how's it going?
Hey, Bill. By this ghoul running CHA.
And and Uncle Warren, hello. Extra Bola.
Yep, saw him in the chat earlier. So, news from City Hall and housing activists regarding, as I mentioned a moment ago, this ghoul at the Chicago Housing Authority, CEO Tracy Scott. Can we scroll up to see pictures? Thanks. As reported by Jamie Nesbitt Golden, housing activists say it's time for a new CHA boss after agency moves to sell former Taylor Homes land. This is after they gave that land to the Chicago Fire soccer team for a training facility. She just look, this CHA Housing Authority CEO Tracy Scott, all she does is double down. There's no accountability. She clearly thinks she can just keep giving away public land that was reserved for displaced residents and Chicagoans.
Yeah, it's dumbfounding.
Why? I can't imagine that Johnson's team won't be paying attention to this activist group. This should be one of the first issues that he deals with in his first month, because this is out of control. And this Tracy Scott, she feels emboldened that Lightfoot emboldened her by allowing things to happen. We know Lightfoot got a huge donation from the billionaire who owns the Chicago Fire soccer team. And suddenly they got all that CHA land. Anyway, advocates also want a meeting with Brandon Johnson and a moratorium on land sales. When someone else can come in and take housing we're still waiting on, that's not right, one resident said. The CHA board voted Tuesday to approve the sale of 2 land parcels to Excess Tennis Village founder Kamal Murray, who wants to build housing for his employees and visiting athletes. Employees and visiting athletes while they're still displaced Chicagoans.
Amazing.
The land is part of the former Robert Taylor Homes, a public housing development raised in 2007. Most of the land has remained vacant since. Tuesday's decision is another blow against the fight to return public housing to the residents who once lived there, advocates said. CHA officials said the $25,000 deal for the land at 5400-02 South Dearborn Street activates a vacant parcel of land with new housing. Murray described the 2 lots as small parcels that couldn't be built upon separately. The deal supports CHA's pledge to bring both market rate and affordable apartments back to the area formerly occupied by the Robert Taylor Homes, as well as apartments for residents from CHA's waiting list, CHA officials said in a statement. It is our belief that this project will serve as a further catalyst for future development on the south end of the Taylor footprint. Activists from Lugenia Burns Hope Center and the Chicago Housing Initiative said Scott has lost sight of the mission by putting profits over people, continuing a pattern to free up CHA land for private projects unrelated to housing. Let's scroll down and see.
Okay.
Yeah, and see.
Yeah, I was checking. I was checking Illinois Sunshine to see if Kamal Murray had donated to anyone of note. The only one I saw was Citizens for Pat Dowell and the Fourth Ward Democratic Org from 2007, and then 2 in 2018. So nothing super significant there at first search.
To see who Murray donated to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that there. Well, Murray could also own any number of businesses that could also donate.
Well,
so we'll have to dive deeper into that. But here are the two
good.
ghouls.
Yeah.
The former ghoul, Lori Lightfoot, and the current ghoul, who is still CHA CEO Tracy Scott, along with prior Deputy Mayor Samir Mayakar at a groundbreaking ceremony for the Chicago Fire on the Near West Side. In March, the federal government approved the agency's plan to lease 23 acres of public housing land to the Fire Pro soccer team, despite protests from former residents of the Abla homes. Last year, CHA entered a $10.3 million land swap deal with the Chicago Public Schools to lease former Harold Ickes homeland on the near south side for a proposed community high school. A similar swap was made in 2015 to build a turf field and track for Jones College Prep, also on the former Harold Ickes homes. The trend of selling public housing land to private developers long predates Scott, who was appointed as CEO in 2020, organizers said. But Scott has defended decisions around some of these land swaps and signaled the agency needs to pursue more of these public-private partnerships in order to provide more mixed-income housing. But CHA land was not about mixed-income housing. It was about providing low-income housing. Ultimately, 2 decades after the CHA tore down and promised to rebuild public housing sites, in its plan for transformation, much of the land is still empty. This has been an issue for us for the last 20 years, said Rod Wilson, Lugenia Burns Center Executive Director. When the plan for transformation first came about, we told the CHA to do it in a balanced way. Vacate the housing, rebuild some housing, bring folks back, then do it again. What they wanted to do was displace thousands of black families because, in my opinion, they knew they weren't going to bring those families back. There was an alderperson, and I'm forgetting the lady's name, who was on the list, the waiting list for
Jeanette Taylor.
Thank you. How long did it take for them to finally find 10 years, over 10 years?
Like 30 years.
No, 30 years?
I think it was 30.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh, update on Illinois Sunshine. XS Tennis. I did a search for that.
Here you go.
And that filled in some of the gaps here. But we got in 2022, we got People for Emmanuel, Chris Welch, $250. It's not much. But then Lamont Robinson for alderman, he gave $1,500.
Look, we've seen this before. Our public officials are whores. They can be bought very cheap, although not all whores are cheap. But I digress.
Well,
no offense to sex workers.
And those are just the donations we know about.
Yeah.
So all that does is just kind of give us a hint as to maybe there was some other stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. The activist was joined by Don Washington, who leads the Chicago Housing Initiative. Washington pointed to the exile of 268,000 African Americans from Chicago as proof that the city isn't doing enough to help its most vulnerable residents. Estimated wait times for public housing and project-based vouchers range from as little as 3 to 6 months to over 25 years. And that speaks to the period of time you just mentioned. According to the CHA website, a CHA spokesperson said around 100,000 families are waiting for public housing, 25,000 families are waiting for vouchers, and 189 remain on their right to return list. 12 families are former Taylor residents. Washington said those numbers show the plan for transformation and the moving to work programs have failed the very people they were created to help. Tracy Scott says the CHA is open for business.
For who?
For her and the cronies there. Will you get down? Look at him. Sent a little love. What is that? Little love nudge to the audience. A CHA spokesperson said around 100,000 families are waiting for public housing, 25,000 families are waiting for vouchers, and 189 remain on their right to return list. 12 families are former Taylor residents. Washington said those numbers show the plan for transformation and the moving to work programs have failed the very people they were created to help. Tracy Scott says the CHA is open for business and that business is displacing black, brown, and poor people from the land that is their land, Washington said. The CHA isn't a job, but a sacred trust. They've been entrusted to protect public land to house people that no market can ever house. Deborah Tipps has spent 9 years waiting for a voucher for a one-bedroom apartment. Tipps's mother spent 28 years on another list for a voucher, passing away before her number was called, she said.
This is unconscionable.
It's obscene and unconscionable. Yep. The grandmother pays market rate rent for her unit in the Rosenwald Court Apartments and estimates that half of her monthly income goes towards keeping a roof over her head, leaving her little money for anything else. But Ed, we can't do a transaction tax on LaSalle Street, can we?
We can.
We could, but they're kicking and screaming and threatening to leave because they don't feel they're accountable to pay their fair share.
Okay, we won't do $1 per trade. We'll just do 10 cents then.
I know in everything in life there's a wait, but this is a disaster. I heard housing is a human right, but we're not treated that way, Tipp said. When someone else can come in and take housing we're still waiting on, that's not right. Let's scroll down to the next picture. In addition to replacing Scott, the group wants a moratorium on public housing, land sales, and a meeting with Mayor Brandon Johnson. A representative from the mayor's office told Block Club on Thursday there is a plan for senior city hall aides to meet with housing advocates soon. That's a good sign. Murray of XS Tennis also wants to meet with organizers, specifically Wilson, he said. Wow. That's interesting. Murray of the guy who runs XS Tennis, wants to meet with the organizers. The tennis coach said it was unfair of the activists to lump him in with billionaire mega developers when he's only trying to take care of the community that raised him.
Uh-huh.
It took me 2 years to get that land from CHA, Murray told Block. Wow, the entitlement.
2 years.
It took him 2 fucking years to get that land from CHA.
People have been waiting how many decades?
This housing is
public housing.
Listen to what he says further. Oh my God. This housing isn't for people coming from Russia. It's for my employees who want to live in the community. Find them private land to purchase on your own dime, asshole. The entitlement that drips in that quote just blows me away. And whether they're Russian, Asian, migrants from south of the border, tough shit, asswipe.
It's for public housing.
Yeah.
Why can't they get that through their heads?
Murray said he supports efforts to bring public housing residents back to the former Taylor homes, telling housing commissioners his is the only development south of 47th Street. The added residential density would complement his efforts to reach more black families through tennis, he said.
Tennis.
So he's got self-serving agenda. It's all about his tennis business. I think we'll be able to reach some common ground. I told him he can pull up. He knows where I am, Murray said. Wilson said Murray isn't the issue. The CHA is. It's about what they've done. I have no problem with him, Wilson said. Well, that's magnanimous.
You don't use public housing land for private interests. The fact that the city has fallen back on its own promises is offensive to me, and it should be offensive to all of you.
Andrew shares it's public housing, not public officials' housing.
Yeah.
And Ian shares, but kids in those neighborhoods can't have basketball hoops. Good point. All right, so
irritating too.
Circling back to something that was kind of, it was very much focused on in the video we shared Tuesday of Brandon Johnson from 10 years ago, talking about how the teachers union had been demonized and how Rahm Emanuel essentially attacked Chicago public schools, especially the teachers union during their strike, because of the things that the teachers were striking for to retain more teachers and keep more schools open. Now, this article from WBEZ Chicago and the Chicago Sun-Times on education lays out where are we now since that video from 10 years ago and all the schools that they closed. Chicago closed 50 public schools 10 years ago. Did the city keep its promises? This images of George and Gladys Smith and their son George Jr. They live across the street from the now shuttered Woods Elementary in Englewood. Members of the Smith family have lived on the block since 1883. They say the area was in decline and the population dropping before 2013, but the closing of Woods was a turning point. George Smith Jr. looked over his shoulder every day on the walk home across the street from his Englewood home, scared. Now, this is Jr., who's pictured there. Scared of the tense environment, scared of neighborhood gangs, scared of getting jumped. But he loved his elementary school. His band class gave him peace. His after-school programs, something to do. And despite the anxiety he carried into adulthood, he was devastated when the school was one of the 50 closed in 2013 by then Mayor Rahm Fuckface Emanuel. I got a lot of pride in that school, a lot of memories, Smith says of his school, later renamed Woods Elementary. To see it just be nothing now and to know what the kids had to go through to go to these different schools, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. Now 40, Smith moved back to the street he grew up on, 2 doors from his parents, George Sr. and Gladys. Sitting on their porch overlooking the former school, the family has watched the block, home to Smith since 1883 and the school since 1964, lose its vibrancy. Many neighbors moved or died without others replacing them. Once beautiful yards were overtaken by weeds. Enrollment at Woods dropped nearly 60% between 2003 and 2013, leaving the building less than half full. The school closing marked a breaking point, the Smiths say, with the mid-century building now a shell, stripped of pipes and anything valuable left inside. A decade has passed since Emanuel called for the closings of more American schools at one time than ever before. Chicago's Board of Education cast its historic votes 10 years ago next week. There's a map. Where are the 50 schools Chicago closed?
South and west sides, I'm guessing. Yep.
Right for yourself there. Where is it?
And three token schools on the north side, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I? No. Did I lose it? Hang on a second. I did. I thought that I had loaded the short clip of Rahm Emanuel congratulating Brandon Johnson with Johnson's commentary on Rahm, but I'll have to upload that to our clip library at some point. I thought I kept it there because I love that Brandon Johnson said Rahm Emanuel is everything that's wrong with Chicago and what was happening, especially given how he shut down those 50 schools. But anyway, so yeah, all south and west sides, those are all the schools that Rahm shut down. Interesting, the southwest, there weren't as many shut down, or the north side, or the northwest. Far south, whiter suburbs. Today, Chicago and other big cities again face similar dynamics as those that led school closings across the country. Major student population declines, aging buildings in need of repair, and budget deficits. The Chicago Sun-Times and BEZ spent months investigating the promises made 10 years ago by city and Chicago public school officials, back when Paul Vallis was CEO, as they shuttered the schools, examining how the closings changed the city, the school system, the children and their families, and studying potential alternate solutions. In the coming weeks, our series of stories will explore 3 core promises made. Students would be better off after their schools were closed. Nope. Their new schools would be transformed. Former school buildings would be reborn as community assets. Yeah, for police training academies, as we saw in the school on the south side that has now been repurposed as a migrant center. These promises largely have never been realized, and the city and school leaders haven't tracked the outcomes. In justifying the closings, Emanuel said it was wrong to leave students in schools that had become severely under-enrolled, were consistently low-performing, and were falling apart. Those 3 criteria would primarily determine which schools would close and which could be spared. All but one of the schools served elementary-age students. Well, there's an example of where you would want to start putting, I don't know, TIF funds and trying to reinvest in those communities to keep those schools open. which the funds weren't there for. Let's scroll down to the next picture. Then, and I'm adding disgraced CPS CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett addressed the Board of Education prior to the votes to close each of the 50 public schools in May 22nd, 2013. The board voted unanimously to close every school except one. She was indicted. I forgot I can't keep track of all the different crimes all of our public officials are charged, indicted, and locked away for. But Barbara Byrd Bennett was involved in a scandal that had to do with enriching herself off of these schemes that closed schools, and ultimately, I think, enriched herself. If you can check that out, Ed, while I read the rest of it.
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
I'll continue.
Boom.
Okay, there we go. So why don't you read from that since you've got it up?
Yes. Ex-school clerk admits scamming CPS out of money for Disney cruise in midst of Byrd Bennett scandal. Oh, and that's not even about her.
No, it's about
that was somebody else talking in the middle of a scandal.
Well, let's get away from her and get back into here. You look for that while I read from the article. Look into Byrd Bennett. Okay,
I've got it.
Okay, you've got it up.
Got it.
All right.
Okay. Crooked ex-CPS CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett leaves prison, but CPS still wants its money back. Okay, that's from 2020. So she did time.
I know she did time, but she's out already?
Apparently.
Let's open the article and you can share what the update is on her. While you do that, let me continue with the article till that's ready. Carlos Azcoidia, one of the 6 Board of Education members who voted to close the schools, says a $1 billion deficit convinced him it was the right thing to do. When you close buildings like that, you save money in a variety of ways, as Cotia says now. Yeah, and you probably are contributing to the root causes of crime, Mr. Azcoitia. As Coitia, I can't even. Many of those buildings were old and they had to be kept. And then you have to provide educational services in schools serving only 100 or 150 students. And what's wrong with that? Why do you want to abandon the 100 or 150 students? I know, probably because your kid isn't in that school. But this is what parents organized on 10 years ago to keep these schools open.
Yeah, they were basing their funding mechanisms on how many students they had. And that's why they made these completely dumb decisions to close down schools in areas where they actually needed to stay open.
Yeah. Now, as a $628 million deficit approaches and enrollment losses have accelerated, even insiders who oppose closing say balancing the budget would be more difficult if those 50 schools were still open. CPS has 81,000 fewer students compared to 2013, far outpacing the decline in the 10 years prior to 2013. Here's the damage that the closures caused. The consequences of these closings still reverberate long after the officials who vowed to do better by Chicago's school children have moved on, including then Chicago Public Schools CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett to prison. The hurt is still palpable among families who wanted their struggling schools funding and improved, not taken away, and the neighborhoods around the schools suffered. Amid continued population loss in predominantly Black communities, the immediate areas around closed schools saw steeper drops in the years after the closings, a Sun Times and WBEZ analysis of the census data found. Census tracts with a majority of Black population that included closed schools lost 9.2% of their residents between 2013 and 2018. Black census tracts with schools that did not close only saw a 3.2% population decline. Now I see Ed has the article regarding Barbara Byrd Bennett. Why don't you share with us what her?
Yeah, well, as of May 6, 2020, she is out from that loophole that let nonviolent offenders get out so that they don't catch the Rona. And so it says she's out. Barbara Byrd Bennett is out of prison and back at home 5 years after her tenure as CPS CEO ended with news of a federal grand jury investigation into an 8-figure no-bid contract, but CPS still wants its money back. Byrd Bennett, 70, so she's 73 now, I guess. Did I do the math right? Left a minimum security prison camp in West Virginia on Tuesday. In May, having served just shy of 3 years for her role in brazen kickback scheme that did serious damage to CPS's reputation and bottom line, and added another classic line to the lexicon of Chicago corruption with her emailed quip, "I have tuition to pay and casinos to visit." I also have tuition to pay and casinos to visit, said deep dish pizza enthusiast Edward Heller on Chicago.
I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Okay, I'm back from the window.
As Ed just did. Astonishing.
Yeah, it says she steered $22.5 million in no-bid contracts to consultants who had once employed her. In return, she expected hundreds of thousands of dollars in kickbacks, but never saw a dime. Oops.
She should have been sentenced to far more.
So she had been sentenced to 4.5 years behind bars, and I think, like I said, they let her go after 3 because of the Rona.
Yeah.
So, okay.
You're not to approve of your methods.
Yeah? Well, you're not from Chicago.
The corruption.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for bringing us up to speed. Yeah, because I remember I lost track. I knew she was charged. I knew she did jail time, but I forgot what the specific scheme was that put her away. So let's go. Yeah, let's go to this graphic that shares the graph information halfway down the page.
That ain't it. That ain't it.
Oh, dude.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done with that story.
No.
Okay, let me get back to the graph. Stand by.
Okay. I needed to finish the below.
I got it. Just this one, right?
Nope.
No, there's one further down.
Yep.
Oh, look at that. There's another graph.
There's more. So we were talking about the damage the closures caused, and the graph reflects that census tracts with a majority black population that included closed schools lost 9.2% of the residents between 2013 and 2018. Black census tracts with schools that did not close saw only a 3.2% population decline, and it was amid continued population loss in predominantly black communities. Experts say school closings might not be the biggest driver of population loss, but they send a message. Schools, in many ways, are representative of a general public commitment to a community and to the longevity and health of a community, to its vitality, to its future, says Amanda Lewis, a University of Illinois Chicago professor and director of the Institute for Research on Race and Public Policy. They are clearly anchor institutions in a lot of ways. Scroll down, Ed. I'm going to bring this graphic back up again. Too many schools and too few children. Bird Bennett, Emanuel, and his appointed school board said they had to act. CPS simply has too many schools and too few children. Now they've got even less, right? Today, CPS has space for over 500,000 students, but just over 400,000 are enrolled in our schools, read a CPS press release from the time. This is stretching its resources much too thin. Now, interesting too, though, Ed, that while they wanted to close all these schools, what did they want to bring into the city? More charters.
Charters.
Yeah. You wouldn't need charters if you weren't closing schools, would you?
Nope.
You wouldn't need to fill that gap and funnel all that taxpayer money to private charter schools that should have been going towards the public schools, the teachers, as well as into the communities around them.
But even if they're saying that they have enough public schools for 500,000 kids and they've only got 400,000 kids, and they have no need for charter schools anyway.
Fair enough.
And most parents and most teachers would argue that smaller class sizes are better for learning anyway. So I don't see why there's a problem here, except for the city not, at least in previous administrations, not realizing that it needs to provide resources for all of those schools as a priority over other things that they might be prioritizing back then, like tourism, a second shiny bean on top of the original bean, a casino,
NASCAR,
a NASCAR race, a terrible parking meter deal.
Art shares that scandal ought to show how easy money funnels through a corrupt system that is checked and balanced. He also shares, imagine a city investing in the improvement of their public schools. That should solve a lot of issues, even if it's a long journey. But an idea like that is now fantasy, so let's keep imagining. Funny you mentioned previous administrations, Ed, because so does the article. Elected to follow the 2-decade reign of Richard M. Daley, Emanuel was confronting issues that had piled up in previous administrations. Daley and then CPS CEO Arnie Duncan opened scores of new schools in neighborhoods with declining population. Do you see how did that happen?
Why would they need to do that?
Because many of them were privately run charters, which further drained traditional schools of kids and resources. They closed several schools a year for performance reasons, but Bert Bennett said this is a piecemeal approach caused disruption and chaos. Meanwhile, faced with limited resources and political considerations, Daley and Duncan didn't confront budget realities, including a mounting pension bill. Emanuel opted to rip off the Band-Aid, unleashing a hurricane of disruption, then hoping to usher in calm with a promise not to close schools for 5 years afterwards. Scroll down. Next picture. His administration made a host of pledges to make closing 50 schools seem more palatable, taking what was essentially a facilities dilemma and making it about school reform and neighborhood redevelopment. Scroll down further. Yet as activists and parents feared and warned, many of these promises proved to be hollow and have dropped from subsequent administrations' priorities amid scandals and the pandemic. More than half of the buildings aren't back in use, most of them vacant and dilapidated. The so-called welcoming schools that received displaced students got significant upgrades, but couldn't ward off outside factors that caused declining enrollment. Their average enrollment and utilization are now worse than prior to the closings. That was despite a promised $155 million in programs and support at the beginning. And while some kids did well in their new schools, research shows few students transitioned to schools that were high-performing enough to make a difference academically. Students from closed schools didn't graduate at higher rates than kids from similar schools that didn't close, a Sun Times and WBEZ analysis found, even though the closings were sold as a way to help improve outcomes. Mayor Fuckface Emanuel, now Ambassador Fuckface Emanuel, did not respond to multiple messages seeking comment.
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
Lastly, calculating the savings and the costs. The hardest promise to measure is whether the mass closing saved any money. Officials estimated CPS would save almost $1 billion over 10 years by reducing administrators and support staff and by avoiding repairing and maintaining so many buildings. That broke down to $430 million in operation savings, or $43 million annually, plus $560 million in capital spending. But a Sun Times and WBEZ analysis shows CPS is likely saving roughly just $25 million a year as a result of employing fewer principals, assistant principals, and clerks, the foundations of school leadership, than a decade ago, while there are about 1,000 fewer teachers. That number tends to vary with enrollment. CPS is no longer paying to heat, cool, clean, or repair the vacated buildings, but it's impossible to accurately calculate avoided costs. And do you know how much it's going to cost if and when they do repurpose or reopen those schools based on the years of abandonment and neglect to the infrastructure within, without climate control or the
rehabilitation? Yep. And if they're even going to reuse those buildings, is probably going to offset any kind of savings that they had.
Yeah. There was no upkeep. That's the former Det Elementary School on the near west side. This property has been vacant since it closed in 2013. A buyer was approved to turn the building into a women's wellness center, but the deal never closed. Yeah. Were the savings worth the cost? Pedro Martinez, CPF's 5th CEO, working for the 2nd mayor since the closings, says no. Well, surprising that he actually had something worthwhile to say. I strongly believe that the cost of closing schools, in terms of the lost trust, the challenges of dealing with the facilities and moving children outweigh any benefits you get from it, Martinez said. Even though I wasn't here when that happened, we have to address that mistrust. So there's your update that I thought was a valuable, perspective in refocusing on what all those closed schools have wrought in the communities since it was something that Johnson felt was important 10 years ago and is a part of, I believe, his platform now, addressing education, reopening schools, and providing the support for kids that, are spread all over the city, even worse now. So, all right. I love this story so much. Not because I'm a Satanist. I'm agnostic. Okay. But, what's fair is fair. And if you're going to open city council meetings when we know that there's supposed to be a separation of church and state with prayers from pastors of every faith, why wouldn't you honor a request from this minister of Satan, Adam Vavrick, to recite an incantation before a city council meeting? That's his faith. If you're going to be equitable and if you think faith has a place in government, which I don't think it does, he should be welcomed. But it's not a fair and equitable system, is it? All right. So Mac Lederman reports at Block Club Chicago. And didn't you tell me this was on their front page the other day?
Yeah, that was top story when they published this.
Yeah. Yeah. Rules for thee, Christian religions, or Muslim religions, but not rules for me, but not for thee, the Satanists. Satanists sue Chicago for not allowing them to say Hail Satan at city council meetings. And you know what? If there's ever a place to say Hail Satan, I would say Chicago city council meetings is probably really the place. Because here, okay, so you think I'm kidding? Let's put this in perspective. For every prayer that's recited before a city council meeting, I would say probably 75 to 80% of those alder people are engaged in corruption, crimes, clearly things that would not fall into line with their faith that they enrich themselves with. Just for example, if you're going to be a good Christian, you're not going to lie, you're not going to cheat, you're not going to engage in corruption. It's all performative. It's pandering is what it is. Now, not to the ministers who recite the prayers. I mean, all respect goes out to them. But I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, prayers don't have a place in city council meetings, nor do satanic invocations, although I think it's funny, because, if you're going to talk about what Satan stands for, cheating, lying, all kinds of evil things, that would actually be more at place in city council, I think, or at least previous city councils.
Well, that's your interpretation of Satan, Jerry, but maybe not theirs.
Maybe it's changing now that a lot of our corrupt aldermen incumbents have left and we've got a better quality of alder people coming in. But let me get to the article.
Yeah, I'm just speaking as a devil's advocate.
Oh, I see what you did there. Minister of Satan, Adam Vavrick, said his request has been stuck in purgatory, which left me with no choice but to file suit. All right. Local Satanists are raising hell with a new lawsuit alleging the city is barring them from saying Hail Satan at the city council meetings. The lawsuit, filed this month by the Satanic Temple, says the city violated the religious group's First Amendment rights by excluding disfavored minority faiths. And why are there any disfavored minority faiths? Shouldn't all faiths be favored equally? From giving an invocation at the start of city council meetings. During the invocations, religious leaders remind lawmakers to reflect upon shared ideals and common ends before they embark on the fractious business of governing according to the lawsuit. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's what's hilarious about this.
This is a great bit that he's doing.
Yep.
Even, I mean, if it's a bit.
No,
but it absolutely calls out the hypocrisy.
You just beat me to it. He's shining light on the hypocrisy of what this is all about. More than 50 local religious groups have given invocations in front of city council since the Satanic Temple of Illinois first inquired about giving one in December of 2019, said Minister of Satan Adam Vavrick, citing publicly available meeting minutes. Vavrick said public officials repeatedly ignored his follow-up requests to give an invocation. Emails he shared with Block Club show officials telling Vavrick they were reviewing the information provided in January of 2020 and still working on this request in March of 2022. What's taking so long? Thank you so much for your interest, the clerk's office official wrote in an email to Vavrick in August of 2021. We will be in touch.
Right.
Vavrick said his request has been stuck in purgatory. I love the fact he keeps
purgatory.
Purgatory.
That's great.
Which left me with no choice but to file suit. Let's scroll on to the next picture.
Okay.
I think the choice to ignore me was the hope I'd just go away, Vavrick said. If we can just ignore a Satanist's request purely because they're a Satanist, then we never believed in equal access in the first place.
Yep.
Boom. Mic drop. He's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, here's what what really shines the light on the hypocrisy here. A mayor's office spokesperson said the city does not comment on pending litigation. Alderman Daniel Laspada, the first who Vavrick said he spoke to about the issue and who was copied on emails to city officials, also said he could not comment on pending litigation. In an email obtained by Block Club, Laspada wrote to a city official saying the requests were not at my behest. Quote, once I learned that he wanted to end his convocation with Hail Satan, it ceased being something I could support, Laspada wrote in the email. For all of my desire to be inclusive, that would be a betrayal of my personal faith. So what?
Yeah, exactly.
So what?
It's not that's besides the point, dude.
Yep. That is exact. And there's the light on hypocrisy that I think it just makes this. Laspada's comment it just wraps it all up in a nice tidy bow. They can do what they want, but if you're disfavored, they can shut you out. And you know, what's my point of this? What's my point of sharing this story? I don't think anybody should be saying prayers or satanic invocations before a city council meeting. Right. We have a separation of church and state in this country. This is not a theocracy. Chicago is not a theocracy. The United States of America is not a theocracy. It's a secular society, which means it's not about religion or faith. It's about equity, and that has no place in guiding what government does. Clicked the wrong button. The Satanic Temple is a federally recognized religion with congregations across the United States and more than 14,000 members in Illinois. That's actually a little bit alarming. And it should be allowed to solemnize city council just like any other religion, Vavrick said. I have to, I guess, table that alarms me. Members do not worship Satan or any higher or lower power, but they reclaim the symbolism of Satan as a rejection of arbitrary authority imposed on people with identities marginalized by other cultures and religions, Vavrick said. So is it a bit? Partially, but he's making a point.
Yeah.
He's using the humor of this to make a very, very valid and solid point here, because we do marginalize certain disfavored faiths or religions or groups.
I should also interject that it is also a legal tax dodge to create or be part of any kind of religion.
Okay.
So for one time I considered joining the United Church of Bacon because I'm a big fan of that bacon. And you can do it. I think it's called baconchurch.org or something. And it's like a branch of the Universal Life Church. So basically for $20, you can become a minister of the Church of Bacon if you wanted to. Or you create your own church, you know.
Many, many years ago, I registered online through one of these websites where you could get your
Become a minister so you can do weddings. Yeah.
Weddings. Well, I wasn't interested in the weddings, Ed. I was interested in getting the hot church secretary.
Okay.
That's why I filed for a minister's list.
Was this in the 90s, Jerry?
This is back in the Jim and Tammy Faye Baker days. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, that was the gag. It's like I read, people are like, oh, you want to administer weddings? Like, no, I want the tax breaks, and I also want to get a hot church secretary, which never happened. But anyway, yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
You can still, I think you can still do that. I think you can still register online to create a church or become a minister or something. Anyway, back to the article. Members do not worship Satan or any higher or lower power, but they reclaim the symbolism of Satan as a rejection of arbitrary authority imposed on people with identities marginalized by other cultures and religions, Vavrick said. This religion is an affirmation that you cannot touch me because I'm happy with who I am, Vavrick said. To embrace Satan is to say I'm the other and I'm fucking proud of it. You know what? I love the sentiment. I think the branding's a little bit off, though, with the Satan. I mean, you know, there's the Church of this Flying Spaghetti Monster, which I think is a little bit more palatable. See what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
let's do that.
Vavrick is co-congregation head of the Satanic Temple of Illinois, which has about 100 active members who meet once a month and have organized highway cleanups and drives for menstrual products, he said. The group does not proselytize, Vavrick said. The benign nature of the group has not stopped public officials across the country from imposing roadblocks to invocation requests, with similar lawsuits moving forward in Boston and Scottsdale, Arizona. An invocation given by the Satanic Temple in Alaska in 2019 led to a walkout of some officials, while another in San Marcos, Texas was given Tuesday. The Satanic Temple of Illinois previously were unable to add a holiday display in the Illinois State House Rotunda. What better place for it? Next to a nativity scene and a menorah in a show of religious pluralism, according to the Tribune. Vavrick said he offered to send Chicago officials the full script of his invocation ahead of time. Now, here's the invocation he wants to... Oh, I see that someone else joined the program. Let me get through the article first.
Oh, hey, Jerry, I just wanted to quickly mention that I think this invocation is pretty good. It's almost like the United Church of Peg Legs invocation.
Well, let's get to that after I get through this article. This is the invocation he wants to present to City Council. Let us stand now, unbowed and unfettered by arcane doctrines born of fearful minds in darkened times. Let us embrace the Luciferian impulse to eat of the tree of knowledge and dissipate our blissful and comforting delusions of old. Let us demand that individuals be judged for their concrete actions and not their fealty to arbitrary social norms and illusionary categorizations. Let us reason our solutions with agnosticism in all things, holding fast only to that which is demonstrably true. Let us stand firm against any and all arbitrary authority that threatens the personal sovereignty of one or all. That which will not bend must break, and that which can be destroyed by truth should never be spared its demise. It is done. I agree with all that except the closing line of Hail Satan. You know what, Minister Vavrick, or whatever, however you're addressed, can you just like pull out the last line and maybe you'd actually, well, I guess keeping the last line is making the point.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, basically it completely, he shoots himself in the dick with being able to present this invocation, which actually makes a lot of sense if you don't relate it to the Prince of Darkness. So I understand that I think Pegleg tried to petition to give an invocation before City Council also, and here he is to join us.
Oh, yeah, those guys are jerks over there at City Council. They don't let any religion outside of, like, the main two over there, the religion of money and the religion of corruption. The other religions, they get to take a back seat, and it's like, you know, we want to typically have the separation of church and state, but if we ever have the opportunity, Jerry, to be able to represent the United Church of Peg Leg, which we call the Chocolate Milkians,
let's hear it.
We would. I don't have a fully written invocation, but it like I said, it's very similar to the ones from the Luciferians. It's let us stand now on one or two legs, unbowed and unfettered by cows or burning barns of fearful minds in darkened times or on the ethereal plane. Let us embrace the peg leg chocolate milkian impulse to drink of the cow of chocolate milk, whose name is Bessie, and dissipate our blissful and comforting delusions of anything that would make you want to put ketchup on a hot dog. And hey,
Yes!
Hail Bessie.
So to new viewers of the show, you'll have to go back 2 years worth of shows to understand the relevance of Mr. Sullivan here and this invocation and chocolate milk cows. I know we do have to update our YouTube channel with a quick primer regarding the history of Peg Leg Sullivan and his and Bessie's relation to setting the Great Chicago Fire.
Been exonerated from that, by the way.
No, you haven't. That's what you said.
There's actual literature in Ireland where they were publishing that this Connors jerk was the one who actually started the fire, but nobody wants to talk about that.
Well, maybe my colleague Ed can go research that and we could present it for this year's Halloween show.
Oh, that's fine. Well, look, Jerry,
what is it that goes to after you possess Ed to do the research? We can do that on the Halloween show and have you in.
Yeah, speaking of possessed, I am possessed to eat some pizza tonight because I was invited to the National Ethereal Plane Pizza Party because it's National Ethereal Plane Pizza Party Day over here. So I will take my leave of you and say good evening to everyone watching out there on Chicago Cornerland.
Have a slice for me, Peg Leg. Let's see if Ed's gonna remanifest. There he is.
He came back again, didn't he?
He did. He possessed you. Do you have that funky ectoplasm all over your body now?
Well, parts of me feel gooier than normal, I should say.
Too much information. TMI.
But anyway, he probably got yanked out of the ethereal plane because you guys were talking about the Luciferians or the Satanists.
I beg your pardon. What did you say?
You know what I said.
We got to go one further with that.
Ow! Christ, Jake, take it easy, man.
Elwood.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Ow! Jesus Christ. Ah, shit. Fuck you, bitch. Hey. Jesus Christ. Oh, you fat penguin. Ah!
I forgot you upgraded that.
I had that one too. All right. So speaking of dark forces, Satanism and dark forces, if I guess you can kind of relate it to this next article. This would normally be reserved for, I don't know, like a Halloween show or something but I have a fascination with this historical incident in Chicago, as related to our World's Fair. And what struck me interesting about this article that I was like, really? They're kind of downplaying what H.H. Holmes did. And I was like, why does anybody feel a need to try to minimize the horrors of H.H. Holmes's crimes? And identity is probably like the first publicly noted serial killer in American history. So this came from William Lee at the Tribune just a couple days ago. 130 years later, was H.H. Holmes's Englewood murder castle the house of a horror legends claim? It wasn't even a hotel, experts say. Well, so what? Do you know how many people were killed in that basement? In the city's history, the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 is perhaps one of its grandest moments. Chicago's emergence on the world stage as a new metropolis rising from the ashes of a great fire just 22 years prior. But in recent years, the city's finest hour has been inextricably intertwined with its first serial killer, the dapper and duplicitous H.H. Holmes, thanks largely to Eric Larson's wildly popular 2003 novel, The Devil in the White City. On the 130th year since Daniel Burnham's sweeping transformation of Chicago's southern lakefront into the classical alabaster-columned White City, the tales of Holmes's dealings here, including his so-called murder castle in the Englewood neighborhood, remain largely sensational tabloid fabrications. What? Well, you know what, Ed? This shouldn't surprise me because it's coming from the Tribune.
Mm-hmm. What are they covering up?
Let's scroll on that picture and go through the slideshow there.
Okay.
So this is a picture of the murder castle many, many years after H.H. Holmes passed in 1937. The building was at 601 603rd West 63rd Street, sold in 38 and was raised to make way for an Englewood post office. The main entrance is at 603 East 63rd Street and housed a sign company in 1937 where Holmes had his drugstore. Let's cycle through. Are there more slides there? Let's cycle and see if there's anything else to look at there. Maybe, oh no, maybe not because it's in the archive. Let me get back to the article though. Okay, so, the Tribune claiming that they're sensational tabloid fabrications, I was kind of shocked by. Different accounts claim that Holmes may have had hundreds of victims who were tortured and killed within any of the building's network of secret rooms. Local historians and researchers have cast doubt on many of the most outlandish actions attributed to Holmes and his 63rd Street 3 flat, including the popular theory that he lured and discreetly killed dozens of victims and disposed of them in the basement of his property. Holmes's former building at 610 West 63rd Street, which initially had a drugstore on the ground floor and rooms on the second floor before a third story was later constructed, did indeed have secret rooms and a walk-in vault that was mostly soundproof, but it is likely was used to conceal stolen furniture rather than murder, experts say. What experts? Why would you have soundproof rooms to hide furniture? What is the agenda of this article? I mean, Ed shared it with me because I'm fascinated by the whole story and the serial killer history and stuff because I'm a true crime enthusiast. I thought it'd be interesting to share this article. The real story is actually more complicated. It's not simply just true or false. He did use the building to commit crimes, but probably not a lot of the crimes that people think, said Paul Durick, a historian with the Chicago History Museum. Let's scroll down to see H.H. Holmes's picture. Born Herman Webster Mudgett in New Hampshire, Holmes was a charming, handlebar, mustachioed grifter and bigamist who arrived in Chicago in 1885 after studying in medical school and styled himself as a doctor and pharmacist in the years before the fair. Yeah, and that's how he basically dismembered all of his victims in the basement before skinning them and selling their skeletons to medical school. That's historical fact. I mean, there's no question about that. The records that were brought up in trial, in his trial, pretty much proved that. Books and documentaries have portrayed the womanizing Holmes as a ghoulish stalker and predator who lured single young women in town for the sprawling lakeside fair to his rooming house, where they mysteriously disappeared. After his conviction for killing his business partner, Benjamin Peddles, Holmes confessed to killing 27 people, most of them fabrications, experts say. Holmes denied killing Peddles' 3 young children, whom he shuttled around the country and Canada by railroad following the insurance scam that left their father dead. We talk about, in crimes and stuff, preponderance of the evidence and circumstantial evidence, or what is the other word that they use? Not the circumstantial evidence, but is it circumstantial evidence? What are the other terms that they use with stuff that clearly shows something?
Anecdotal?
Maybe anecdotal. Circumstantial evidence. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that's right.
I think the circumstantial evidence clearly points to this concept of Occam's razor. The most obvious solution is probably the solution or points to the facts. Why would he be shuttling kids around the country who disappeared following the insurance scam theft that left their father dead? The bodies of Peddles' daughters, Annie and Nellie, were found in Toronto, while the remains of his son, Ben, were found in Indianapolis. So why would you not think that? Why would you not think that Holmes? I mean, he denied their murders, but how did he killed other people. So why would their bodies? See, this whole article is. You know what this article is to me, Ed?
It's like apologia. But why? Why are you?
What does that mean, Vic?
That's what it is to me.
It's like, well, I mean, he was a serial killer, but he wasn't as bad of a serial killer as you think he was. Why would you even bother bringing that up as a theory?
Well, this article is dated May 16th. It certainly wasn't a slow news week.
Thesis, I mean.
It wasn't a slow news week that they trotted this out 2 days ago. Yeah, it's literally like a apology for him. Like you just said, he was bad, but he wasn't that bad. He was horrible.
I mean, look at the quotes from Adam Seltzer.
I want to look up this William Lee and see what else he's written for the Tribune, because I'm like, I can't wrap my mind around why. First of all, this is newsworthy, or why you would even think that any of this has to be revisited.
Like they're discounting things based on what? Where's
oh my goodness! I just saw who Will Lee is. He was he was the leg man to Page 2 columnist John Cass. I think John used to nickname him Old School. Okay. I think I met William Lee once. He's a good guy, but this is like
seriously
weird.
Though. Do you see the quote I'm looking at?
Let's see here. Which quote is it?
The one that says he did kill 9 or 10.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's almost verbatim for the thing that I just said.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Let me scroll down here. Okay. Anyway, I don't know, Old School, why you would feel it was relevant to try to cast some kind of sympathy on him because we looked at him too harshly.
That's right. What are you calling him a piker? You saying he's not the huge serial killer monster that everybody made him out to be because he didn't kill quite as many people as you think?
Holmes, who was only convicted in Peddles' murder, is suspected. Peddles, the one whose daughters disappeared and their bodies were spread in Toronto and Indianapolis, while Holmes was running around the country. Holmes, who was only convicted in Peddles' murder, is suspected of killing several people during his time in Chicago, but left the city in summer of 1894. But before he was linked to any murders, it was only after his subsequent arrest in Boston and confessions that his Chicago activities were scrutinized. Why would you doubt his confessions?
That's what I'm wondering.
What did he have to gain by confessing to all these other murders? He did kill 9 or 10 people, but it wasn't hundreds and hundreds. It wasn't in a hotel, and it wasn't World's Fair patron, said author and Chicago tour guide Adam Seltzer, whose 2017 book, The H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, sought to demystify the killer behind the legend using official records and documents. Hey, look, I'm all for getting to the facts, okay? And if there were some discrepancies, fine, but I don't know what good or what agenda this serves to, like, there were probably other people he killed that we don't know about beyond the ones he confessed to, given his history. The guy was a psychopath. You don't trust psychopaths. It's like what happened with Jeffrey Dahmer, who ironically was very forthright in acknowledging, and they found his victims, but same pathology.
And it's like, you expect them to have the perfect crime solving skills in the late 1890s or whatever it was. It's like you're thinking that there's a whole bunch of Sherlock Holmes running around in Chicago, making sure that they have all of the T's crossed and I's dotted on all the evidence or whatever. They don't. They don't even have that now.
Yeah, really. It's tough enough now, as much as they pretend that they do. Holmes is
it's like for you to discount some things. It's like, oh well, we don't think he actually killed these 3 or 4 people that he said he killed. Why would he lie about that?
And he killed enough people, so there's no reason to try to soften his image. Holmes's confessions are what likely fed his legend. Since then, media and pop culture has reimagined Holmes as an American equivalent to Jack the Ripper. Well, there were some suspicions he could have been Jack the Ripper because I think he traveled to London. That was the subject of a documentary. I think it was on Discovery or Learning Channel not a couple of years back. Some have even speculated that Holmes was the London lady killer. He was a swindler first and foremost, who partly through his own confessions became a new American tall tale, Selzer said. I don't know how tall that tale is. Whatever he said about himself, whichever way he tried to portray himself after he had been incarcerated, is most likely fiction, Durica said. It seems to be, by and large, if he did murder individuals, it was for financial purposes or to protect himself. So what? I mean, they're not presenting the facts that dismiss what he confessed to. So it's like their claims are as potentially untrue as what they're claiming his claims were being untrue. Wow, what a great picture. The court of honor from the roof of the manufacturer. Man, what a time to live in. I mean, it wasn't that great with plumbing and utilities and stuff and shit in the streets, but man, did their architects know how to do things right. Even the Tribune peddled in rumors reprinting a New York World tabloid story in an August 1895 Sunday edition that called Holmes Bluebeard after the legendary wife killer. The story, published as Holmes awaited trial in Philadelphia, included numerous falsehoods that would become the basis of Holmes's legend, including a drawn diagram of his castle, complete with trapdoors, hidden chambers, and a crematory. But they're
saying those didn't exist.
That's what this article is claiming.
How could look? I will be the first to say that the newspapers and tabloids of that time, and also 20 years before, often made stuff up. We know they made stuff up about the Great Chicago Fire.
No, we don't. Well, yeah,
we do. Yeah, we do. They totally
O'Leary instead of Pegleg.
They totally blackmailed Mrs. O'Leary and Pegleg. So it's not beyond the scope to think that the newspapers would make stuff up. But why would someone just out of whole cloth create all kinds of diagrams of his castle if they didn't actually exist? And why would they make efforts to cover them up now?
I believe it was public record that I recall in a documentary on Holmes that stated he would have some contractors come start. Well, you know what? This actually didn't make sense to me, Ed, because I remember seeing this presented in a documentary, and even the way it was presented didn't make sense. What they claimed was that he'd have a set of contractors come start construction, then he'd dismiss them and have other contractors come in to do things in different ways to create these closed rooms. But for the life of me, I would ask myself, would contractors even legitimately, even if they're being paid, I guess maybe they would, just if they're getting paid for it, do what your client wants you to do? How could nobody have suspected, why is this stairway going nowhere? Why does this room have doors that are locked on the outside with gas pipes going in? I mean, people couldn't have been stupid to think this is really.
Hanky, what does that mean?
So a lot of those accounts did kind of confuse me, or I wondered, like, why would contractors do that? Because that's why they said he was able to get away with it, because he'd have multiple contractors doing different things that didn't complete the work of the prior contractor, which created these rooms and these torture chambers and stuff.
Well, and he wouldn't necessarily have to tell him the actual purpose for the things that he wanted built.
Well,
so
of course but a room with a lock on one side and gas pipes going in.
Well, I mean, even anybody can install or modify a lock to a door.
Okay,
he could have done that himself.
Stairway to Nowhere.
May have wanted just a secret room, or who knows.
Trapdoors, hidden chambers, and a crematory in the basement. There was a crematory in the basement.
That I don't know what to tell you.
No,
I would like to have a pizza oven in my next home. I'm just saying.
All right. Well, Durica said that immediately following Holmes's death, most news reports focused on Holmes's greed rather than a clear compulsion to kill. He theorized that Holmes was retroactively painted as a killer by people's expanding knowledge of killers. We think in hindsight of him as a psychopath, a serial killer, but he was probably, if we were going to diagnose him today, we'd say he's closer to a sociopath, a con artist, a drifter, A perennial liar, Durica said. Murder was a means to an end, but it had to serve a practical purpose. It wasn't something he just engaged in because he had some overwhelming passion to commit these horrible acts.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Why would you?
Is this just the desensitization of our culture? Look,
are they trying?
Kids, Ed, we're seeing kids being put back. We're seeing child labor laws pulled back. We're seeing the greatest wealth divide since the Gilded Age. Now we're basically, softening psychopaths.
For what purpose? Is somebody putting you up to this? Is somebody doing similar things to what H.H. Holmes did in this modern day, and you're preemptively trying to soften the blow when that news comes out?
This sentiment was shared by Seltzer, who has done one of the deepest dives into Holmes' past for his 2017 book. In his book, Seltzer, who operates the Mysterious Chicago Tours and who examined the basement of Holmes's former home, which partially sits below the current Englewood Post Office. I didn't know that it still exists. I've always been curious to know what's left there, and there was some video taken in the catacombs under the post office, but I didn't know that any of his basement still sits under there.
Oh, you think that there's still something under there?
Well, the article says he examined the basement of Holmes's former home, which partially sits below the current Englewood Post Office.
How? Why didn't?
Dispels a number of Holmes' myths, including the notion that he silently murdered dozens of people in the bustling community of Englewood.
How does it if the actual home isn't there anymore?
Well, if the basement exists and there's no crematorium there, I don't have an answer for that, but part of the basement could have been filled in. Is the entire basement still intact? I don't think so.
They could have filled it with cement.
The murder castle did have hidden rooms between floors, accessible by dumbwaiter and a secret staircase. The Sensational World article claimed the dumbwaiters were used to lower bodies to the basement, but Seltzer and Durica said the elevators were used to hide furniture Holmes purchased on credit and hid from repossession agents.
Well, you can have multitaskers in your home.
Holmes's building had a nearly soundproof vault, but Seltzer said there was no evidence that victims were gassed in airtight rooms or dismembered in the basement lab. This Seltzer is quite an apologist for H.H. Holmes, I think.
Also, how does he even talk about evidence when the home is not there anymore? What evidence do you have that it didn't happen?
There have got to be records since the building stayed intact since at least that picture we showed at the top through 1934. In addition to the 63rd Street property, Holmes was known to frequent a glass bending business near what is now Sealy Avenue near Fullerton Avenue and what is now Bucktown, where some had theorized Holmes dumped some victims. Holmes had probably disposed of a couple of bodies in the basement, then decided that destroying a body in a crowded building without arousing suspicion was impossible, Seltzer wrote. You really just can't have bodies decomposing in your basement. But he had a crematorium without people noticing the odor. But he was dismembering and stripping them for the skeletons that he sold to medical universities. Those are the facts that were borne out, I believe, in the historical record, in the documentaries that I saw. He probably tried it a few times, then decided to dispose of any bodies he found on his hands elsewhere, perhaps first in the shack, then in the glass bending factory on the north side. The myths surrounding Holmes persist today, partially because of the true crime zeitgeist permeating pop culture, Durica said, comparing it with the enduring popularity of gangster Al Capone. What's interesting about both Holmes and Capone is the whole kind of like cottage industries have sprung up around them. The Devil in the White City sort of launched it with Holmes, but since that book came out, you've got television documentaries, multiple ones. You've got all sorts of bus and walking tours that are designed around the Holmes story. That's what you find with Capone as well. Books, film tours, merchandise. He said in both cases, it makes it easier for the fiction to kind of overtake the fact. I don't think there's been any fiction that's overtaken the fact of Al Capone. As much as we know that a lot of history regarding Capone has been dramatized, but the facts are still there to know what he still did. Any historical figure can be dramatized for fiction or for motion pictures or other media, but I know what Al Capone did and what he was, and no Hollywood no Hollywood redressing of him or his legend, if that's what you want to call it, or infamy, is going to change the facts that were reported at the time. And I know that there were facts reported at the time of Holmes's trial. They're still part of the historical record. Anyway, that's the article. I just thought it was an interesting trip to take down Chicago's history, because I've always found the Holmes story fascinating, horrifying, fascinating in the sense that, like, I can't imagine how someone can, like, be so completely inhuman to prey upon and murder people that way. But I've always said, when people ask me if I like horror movies, I don't like horror movies, but they say, but you love Silence of the Lambs and Zodiac or Seven. Yeah, because they're police procedurals where the cops actually, are going after the serial killers, and there's some justice wrought at the end, although not so much in Seven. But Zodiac was based on the true crimes in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it was a very famous case, but that movie Zodiac, as much as it was a true crime horror movie, what I appreciate about serial killer stories is the police procedural aspect of hunting the serial killer and finding them and bringing them to justice. So I think that's what fascinates me about the Holmes story, is the historical record. I'd also really be interested in seeing his story, as well as the story of the victims, dramatized in some kind of a historical film, a historical drama. It hasn't been done yet. But anyway, so that's that story. So as we come to the end of the show, we have a couple of updates. We talked at the front end of the show with our Brandon Bingo card, Mayor Johnson's handling of the migrant crisis. And this story came out today. Was it today?
Yeah.
I think it was today. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the Chicago Sun-Times, France Spielman and Violet Miller. Excuse me. Mayor Brandon Johnson's team is eyeing Wright College as a shelter for migrant families. Johnson's chief of staff said the Northwest Side School is under serious consideration as a new respite center to alleviate some of the pressure on the police stations. 400 asylum seekers could be housed at Wilbur Wright College starting June 1st and remain on the Northwest Side campus till August 1st to minimize the need for migrant families to sleep on the floors of Chicago police stations, a top mayoral aide said Friday. Again, there are beds in storage. There are cots in storage from the McCormick COVID emergency hospital that was set up. You're going to tell me there aren't any other vacant buildings with bathrooms or closed hotels that can't be utilized? I don't know why that's not the go-to, but
yeah, I mean, look, if they had Pritzker help with setting those up for McCormick Place, they could have him help again to get them set up wherever else they need them. I don't see why that's an issue and why it's taken so long to get anything like that taken care of.
Art had an interesting comment on the last story. It's a desensitization. You do realize that school shootings are so common now that having them now is now normal. Murder is now as sanitized as if it is a career choice to make. Yeah,
I hate that they are doing that, but no, ladies and gentlemen, murdering people is not normal.
Well, we know
people is bad.
Yes.
We should not be happy about these things happening, and we should not be desensitized by these things.
Well, it's Art's observation, not conviction.
I know. I'm pushing back at the situation because people need to be angry about that.
Yeah.
I should note that we got another tip from Dominic on Rockfin.
Awesome. Let's share it.
Thanks, Dominic. He says, let's remember the CHA or any other level of government agency or department is a political organization. They are run by people who are hired and paid by the political administrations in power at the time. Our citizens have no control over the decisions that they make, just like the politicians we elect. If we have no voice in government after elections, we are just electing rulers.
Pretty much. I still don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Rich Guidice?
I think we were calling him Judas.
Rich Judas. Mayor Brandon Johnson's chief of staff said Wright College at 4300 North Narragansett Avenue is under serious consideration as a new respite center to alleviate some of the pressure on the police stations. We have a lot of migrants inside our police stations. There's challenges with that, giving them space issues, the public having access to the building, stuff like that, Judas told the Sun-Times. If there's a facility that's being underutilized or it's down for the season, that would be a better option for us. More than 500 families, many of them with young children, are sleeping on the floors of Chicago police stations. Some stations are so crowded with migrants. Area residents are having a tough time getting to the front desk to file a crime report. Judas was asked whether using the gymnasium and community rooms at Wright would make that uncomfortable, unsanitary, and downright dangerous situation unnecessary. No, I don't think it's big enough to do just that, but ideally we're looking for larger facilities or larger big box type solutions. We've got a whole team of people evaluating these facilities just to make sure that they're safe and we're putting them into a safe environment. Ed, how many like...
There's got to be vacant motels and hotels.
Yeah, right. I've passed some. I remember passing some like on the expressway going out to O'Hare. They've probably been raised since then, but they're there. We know they're out there. Alderman Nick Sposato is circulating flyers asking his Dunning constituents to attend an important community meeting at 6 p.m. Tuesday at the City College, which is in his ward. Uh-oh. Sposato said he expects a boatload of security concerns to be aired at that meeting, including some of his own. Safety is a big concern of mine, mainly safety for the migrants, because, so he's worried about the migrants too. Because you've got 400 strangers living together. Let's say you have a family with 16 or a 17-year-old boy living with 14 or 15-year-old girls, Sposato said. When they're going to shower or going to the bathroom, are they showering together? Do the girls go here and the boys go there? There's just a lot of questions that are going to make sure they have security there. Originally, they told me we'll put special attention on it. That's not good enough. I told them we're going to need 24/7 police and a 24/7 interpreter over there.
Okay.
Sposato said he's concerned about the migrants being taken advantage of from each other or strangers. If they're trying to work for cash or do odd jobs, I'm more worried about that. I'm more worried about the criminal element coming over there somehow, some way, and taking advantage of these people. Well, that would be companies and businesses that don't want to pay Americans a fair living wage. So I hope you focus your spotlight on that. Mm-hmm. Sposato is further demanding an ironclad guarantee that not a single police officer will be taken away from the Jefferson Park District to provide security at Wright. Well, then, how can you legitimately be concerned about the safety of the migrants if you don't want a single police officer to be taken away from the district to provide security?
He gets to that in the next lines there.
These need to be people from headquarters. We're short as it is. If we're going to put police here, which is absolutely positively need to, they can't come from the 16th district. I don't want any police from the 16th district to be assigned to this detail. Sposato said he's encouraging his constituents to come out on Tuesday night and be civil. The fear of the unknown, there's a lot of moving parts here and a lot of scary things to me. To tell you the truth, I mean, anytime you put 400 strangers together, that's not a good mix, the alderperson said. I don't think there'll be like any alcohol over there, but who knows? You never know. If somebody goes and gets some alcohol and they drink on the street, then they go there. I don't know. I don't know anything about these people other than what I feel in my heart of hearts. Minimum 95% of these people are here to make a good life for their families. Okay. I applaud that.
It sounds to me like he's just trying to he's coming up with hypotheticals in his head. And it's like, but overall, it sounds like he's trying to stay positive about the situation. So lean on that part, Sposato. Yeah. Lean on the positive part and go, okay, if you have any issues, you guys will deal with them, but try to stay positive like it seems like you're trying to do.
Judas said Sposato's security concerns are the same concerns we have. We know that this is a situation that is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but we're working our way through it as best we can, the chief of staff said. Juan Acuna, owner of Tom and Jerry's Gyros, located across, I don't know who Tom is, but located across the street.
Now I want gyros.
Now I do too. Located across the street from Wright College, said he empathizes with the migrants as he came alone from Mexico when he was 12. Acuna, now 34 and a homeowner in Jefferson Park, said he wants to help however he can because he knows the struggles, including how people make comments when they know someone is a migrant. Because you're Hispanic or you're an immigrant, people are going to look at you differently, Acuna said. People think that since we're coming to this country, we're taking something away from. That's all I ever hear from people, Ed. They're taking our jobs. They're taking our jobs. I asked one person who was worried about all the jobs that they're taking, who I know has a hires a lawn care service. I asked them, have you checked the cards of the lawn care professionals that come service your lawn? No. Why? Well, I trust their manager. I'm like, you can't trust anybody. If you're worried about illegal immigrants taking jobs, you should make sure they're legal, shouldn't you? But it doesn't really matter because most white people don't want the grueling work of doing lawn care, right? Let's be honest.
Then they probably won't be paid for it.
Yeah, those are the jobs they're taking. The jobs that no white person wants to take because they're grueling, back-breaking jobs that don't pay a living wage. They're working out in the fields, farming, right? Collecting crops, cleaning, lawn service, construction. That's just what blows me away is like, no, none of these migrants are taking anybody's high-paying jobs that you should vilify, fear them, and make those kind of xenophobic comments. While you're paying your lawn service to do the work you don't want to do without making sure that I said to them, are you sure that the people working for the lawn service, who I knew were mostly, looked like they were mostly Latin or Hispanic, are you sure that they're legal, that they're not taking jobs away from all the Americans who want to go do your lawn care? Anyway, it was an interesting conversation, Ed. Now a resident with his green card and working towards citizenship, Acuna said the biggest barrier to success for many migrants is learning English. Since the migrants are being hosted at a college, he said he hopes the college uses some of its resources to help teach English to anyone who wants to learn. If you learn the language, I think you can do anything, Acuna said. Diana Garzon, who graduated from Wright 2 years ago, says she thinks it's great. The buildings are really empty over the summer. It's a good use of space that's already here and being paid for. Garzon said she wasn't concerned about the students being welcoming, but said some conservative members of the community might object.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that coming, especially at this meeting they're going to have this week. Okay. So as we're closing the show with lighter stuff to cleanse the palate of all the stuff that all the stuff that upsets us, although we had some positive stories tonight and some solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Party has completely lost its mind. I got an email today from the Biden-Harris camp.
Bizarre.
Soliciting these.
That's ridiculous.
They're embracing. How can you? First of all, it's like a fucking game for them. It's all fun and games. This guy has got one foot in the grave. Okay, he clearly has cognitive issues. He's clearly sundowning. We've seen the videos. Yeah. It's a big fucking joke that they call him Dark Brandon. Oh, let's embrace it and make these funny stickers. Pay us $6 for the stickers. This is their appeal to Generation Z, all the young voters who think this shit is funny. And I call Generation Z for zombie, because that's essentially what Biden is right now. But look, I'm all for irreverence in our politics and in our discourse and in our analysis. But that this is the best the Democratic Party has to try to fundraise off of, not just Biden, but Harris, who is a walking word salad.
Brains.
Wow. Miguel H says, let's put fuck Joe Biden stickers instead. Yeah. Art had a comment on the last story also. I wanted to, I just scrolled back and saw. The thing is, once you house migrants into a community, they stay in the community, and no one loves to take care of people in need for long periods of time. Yep. So well, Miguel H, I think that the Democratic Party thinks they do. Look, so let me ask you this, Miguel. Do you think that boomers or older voters are going to buy this crap? I don't think so. I think that this is a rallying call to younger voters because
it is.
Yeah.
And it's completely tone deaf, and they think that the younger generations are stupid.
Yeah. Well, some paid off younger generation members who aren't stupid, but they're clearly capitalizing on this on social media. The Gen Z for Biden.
Yeah, those TikToker kids that are getting paid six figures to basically go and do TikToks while high on Adderall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prostituting themselves for their oppressors who don't give a shit about them. They're not going to get rid of. They're not going to eradicate student loan debt. You know, these kids. This is not a generation that can like get a decent paying job and buy a home like previous generations. This is a generation that's going to be saddled and crippled with student loan debt for the rest of their lives, which is going to force them to live in a rental society.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the Dems are starting to push Medicare for all again now that they don't control both chambers of Congress, and they think we're all stupid, like we don't see what they're doing, because when they do control both chambers of Congress and have a guy with a D running the country, they choose to not even mention Medicare for all. And then when everybody who previously supported them calls them out on that and asks them to force the vote, they call us violent. They say our words are violence. Meanwhile, now they're doing it again. They're saying, oh, let's do a push for Medicare for all. You know that Dark Brandon with the glowy eyes and the melty brain isn't going to go for it. He said he wouldn't.
I already saw on Twitter today after this, before the show, somebody posted something of Joe Biden stating that he will veto or cancel anything that they do with Medicare for all again. That's his position, guys. And that the Democratic Party or Sanders or anybody in the progressive camp is acting like any of their efforts to do this is going to do anything other than fundraise and enrich themselves without ever going through is folly. Yeah, I want to put that on my car. I want to put that on my car or in my window. Wow.
We're going to do World War III, Jack.
Yeah. We are. If he's
check out my glowing eyes.
Him and Dianne Feinstein, whatever. She's another one. They literally like wheeled her in on a chair because she can't walk anymore, and she's voting on things that she has no cognitive ability to assess. And there were other reports that came out that she literally has handlers and aides that basically vet who she talks to so that nobody knows how completely out of touch and out to lunch she is. It's the same thing with Biden. Yeah, I can't imagine his heart's not going to explode from all the stimulants that they're pumping into him to make him look like he's actually functional.
Well, that, and they got that test brain chip that Elon gave them. It's like a remote control for Joe. That's why, like, every once in a while, you'll see him start walking away from the podium, and then he'll just kind of be pausing like he's buffering.
Yeah. Is that so? Telling me about that. I know you
forgets where he's walking. What's
that chip about?
Oh, a little while back, Elon Musk was pushing this thing where he was talking about, people were going to get these chips installed in their brains. And I'm just like, well, yeah, that's Ghost in the Shell kind of cyborg stuff that eventually will probably happen in our future. But my theory was that along with the brain meds that only last a certain amount of time, which is why they limit the length of his speeches, I think that they also have a control chip installed in his brain to help him, to basically steer him or guide him like the Manchurian Candidate.
You're being serious. You're not joking right now. You really think that?
I have to think
it's crazy because, here's the only thing that kind of might discount that theory is that seniors who do have cognitive abilities, they do have that. They do have patterns that he's exhibiting.
What was I doing? Where was I going? Where are my keys?
Yeah, and he does stop.
Which way was I walking?
like he's in standby mode.
But I mean, seriously, I mean, they give these members of Congress and the people in Washington like the top level gold Cadillacs of medical care. And so who's to say that they aren't using some type of new medical technology, whether it's a brain memory assist or some supplemental motor control thing that they installed in his head to help him make decisions or to help him continue thinking. I'm definitely getting into sci-fi territory here, but I wouldn't run it past him right now. I mean, campaigning.
There are suspicions. A lot of people are throwing on social media that he has multiple doubles.
Yeah.
And they always point to the fact his earlobes look different in different pictures. But I'm like, I think, okay, we
or
do
AI or CGI.
Okay, but we've heard that often public figures do have doubles. We saw during the Trump administration, did Melania have doubles? They trotted some people out in sunglasses that were clearly not Melania, but kind of looked like her. But my thought is like,
and Hillary did too.
Yeah, and Hillary did too. But if Joe Biden really has doubles, why would they have the doubles perform so ineptly instead of trying to make the Biden that they're put? Well, maybe they are actually, because there are certain situations where he does seem like he's functioning, and others where he doesn't.
They can't make him function too perfectly, or then you'll know he's fake.
Yeah. Oh, Andrew, I love you, man, but no, I hope not. I hope it is a pipe dream. I'm not a fan of Marianne Williamson. I think Marianne Williamson is very, very condescending to everybody she talks to. But she elevates herself and acts like she's for everybody. But make no mistake, didn't she endorse Biden when he got the nomination last time? And she'll do the same thing this time after she fundraises off of it and enriches herself with crystal ball over at breaking points.
You will get nowhere by voting inside the duopoly of doom.
Yeah.
Anyone running on the Democratic ticket has to sign a thing that says that if they don't win the primary, which we already know, they are allowed to rig in the back room with cigars for whoever they want. That the losing people in the primary have to endorse the winning guy in the primary. So it's a losing battle. Nobody should run inside the Democratic Party if they actually want real change.
We're not going to have debates, man.
And they said they were not going to have debates. And also, you got RFK polling way higher than Marianne Williamson. And if RFK had the balls to actually run independent or third party, he could actually win.
I'm curious to see if he sees the writing on the wall with the way they're going to dick him around during a primary season, the way they did Sanders.
He knows.
We all know. But where I was going was, I wonder if it's going to be enough to push him into saying, "Fuck it, then I'm running independent."
Yeah, and that said, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that he's saying right now. RFK, I'm talking about. Yeah. He's basically speaking the truth and uncovering things and saying all the things that the corporate captured media doesn't want him to say, and that everyone in the establishment and government doesn't want him to say, but he's saying truths. Does that mean that he's going to be a perfect president? Does that mean he'll even be a good choice? I don't know. Some people are already finding flaws in him, and I understand that, he's not completely blameless in some of the things he's done in his past. He's been in planes with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know how far he's gone. Yeah, there's documentation there, but I don't know what he's actually done besides just hitching a ride or having him fly him in places. So I think I'm trying to remember whose book that was. So I'm just saying, we don't have the best of choices right now. And right now the duopoly is making it so you really don't have any choices because they make it so hard for third parties to do anything.
Have you followed all this crystal ball controversy on social media since she basically ambushed him in the interview?
I'm superficially aware of that stuff, and it sounds like she was prepared to do a hit piece on him because
it was a complete hit piece. It absolutely.
I mean, look, Marianne officiated her wedding, for crying out loud. I mean, she should have recused herself from any kind of interview with him.
Well, the thing was, they covered a lot of important issues in the interview with RFK, but they say what Crystal Ball did was she waited till the end of the show till they had 5 minutes left when they have no commercial breaks or no other guests.
They stream. They're not on regular television. There's no such thing as we only have 5 minutes left.
Right. And they waited.
This show is proof of that because we're already into 15 minutes after 11 p.m.
Well, she saved the issue on vaccines, to which she grandstanded and made it all about herself while talking over him and shutting him down from. She didn't want to have a debate, but she opened it up for a debate, and then she wouldn't allow him to talk, even though, he kept his cool, man. I give him a lot of credit for. I mean, that there was an agenda there, and I used to like Anna Kasparian too, till I saw what a hag she was. Now I'm like with Crystal, I've lost a lot of respect for her. I think Crystal has presented some fair commentary and analysis on news stories, but what I saw the other night was clearly, it was a hit piece on behalf of her friend Marianne, who officiated her wedding, to try to knock RFK down a few notches regarding vaccine beliefs or vaccine facts, because so many on the left are absolutely pro-vaccine in ways that they don't understand that there's some middle ground regarding how beneficial or how detrimental they can be. So, yeah, go look at her interview. And Sagar, man, I have a lot of respect for Sagar, but I was absolutely flabbergasted at that. Basically showed who wears the pants on the show and who runs the show, because he didn't say a goddamn word during that whole ambush at the end of the show. And what she did was too, after that broadcast was done, they clipped only the section on vaccines and RFK and ran to YouTube to post it up there to basically take them to
total smear.
It was a total smear job. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we got our last story, I've got some, this came to me by Ed, her boss, Marianne Williamson. Yeah. Yeah, that 5 minutes that were left, it was the biggest joke. Will he run as an independent? I highly doubt it. Place your bets. Andrew says he claims that vaccines cause autism. I'm autistic. I find him.
Okay, that's simplifying his position on vaccines.
What is a blessed?
So
meter?
I would ableist.
Ableist. Okay. Yeah,
okay.
ableist.
I think you probably should actually look into his actual positions on that, because that's definitely simplifying. You probably using someone else's talking points.
All right, let's get into our last story, for which I have my own video. I found this story interesting. Well, let's get to the story, and then I'll share why I find it interesting. Should we just run the WGN video?
Sure.
Yeah, this video with it.
I think I got that working.
Okay.
This weekend and looking to get married, you could have a one-of-a-kind hot dog-themed wedding.
So Oscar Mayer is turning its Wienermobile into a Wiener of Love chapel Saturday and Sunday.
Wait.
A couple can book a 30-minute spot online or join the wait list.
That's not the story.
No, that was not the story I thought that was.
A Wiener Whistle Quartet.
Where's
There's going to be a Wiener cake and hot dogs.
Was there a video that was on the page related to the story?
I thought that was the video. I had a different video link for that somewhere. Let me see if I can pull that.
Well, scroll down the page. I think maybe this is just a video that they put there because it was Oscar. Yeah, no, that's the right article. That's the right article. All right. For some reason, WGN has a video on the page there that's unrelated to the story. That happens a lot. But let's go to the point of the story as that came to us from WGN. As reported by Michael Bartiromo. The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, perhaps the most accurately named vehicle in the history of transportation, is getting a new name for the first time since its debut in 1936. The company's fleet of sausage-shaped cars will henceforth be known as Frankmobiles, to bring attention to the new recipe for all beef franks, according to Oscar Mayer.
This is just a marketing gag.
Well, it's creating a marketing controversy, and I'll share with you why. Yeah. Debuting this week, the fleet of 6 vehicles feature wonderful new elements, including saucy exterior decals, Frank whistles, formerly Wiener whistles, and a newly renamed class of hot doggers behind the wheel, now known as Frankfurters, the company wrote in a press release. The all-new, scroll down, the all-new beef Frankmobile. Beef Frankmobile. In addition to their new monikers, Oscar Mayer's Frankmobiles will also be handing out coupons for free packages of hot dogs, but only for visitors named Frank or any iteration of the name, according to Oscar Mayer. A representative for Oscar Mayer could not say whether the Wienermobile's rebranding was intended to be permanent or simply scheduled through the end of the company's promotional campaign for its all-beef Franks.
Yep.
For now, the Frankmobile is a name Oscar Mayer is trying to see if it cuts the mustard with its fans, a representative for the brand said. There are currently 6 Frankmobiles, and Oscar Mayer's... Okay, this is why you need to keep them known as the Wienermobiles, because they call the Frankmobiles their meat fleet. According to the company, fans, along with any Franks, Franklins, Francises, or Francines hoping to score some free food, can keep up with their whereabouts via the official Oscar Mayer website. All right. So this is where my mind goes with this, Ed. The Wienermobile is part of their all-meat fleet. Now they're calling it the Frankmobile.
Yeah.
Years ago, when I was doing some production work, freelance production work, this must have been 8 years ago, maybe longer, Oscar Mayer decided to roll out the Wienermobile, as it was called back then, and roll it through Boys Town. I don't think that was an accident for this particular shoot that they were doing to run the Wienermobile
through Boys Town.
Through Boys Town.
So they're rolling a giant sausage through Boys Town.
A giant wiener through Boys Town.
Big wiener through Boys Town. Okay.
And that was my video. What happened? That was me on the side. We were closing down the street, and there was a specific conscious effort to focus on Boys Town, which is fine, right? It was funny.
It's a promotional marketing gag. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
I'm just wondering, why does the rebranding of the Wienermobile to the Frankmobile have to do anything with freaking out about not wanting to be perceived as, I don't know, leaning towards being LGBTQIA inclusive because wieners are I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's just a marketing thing.
Look what happened with Bud Light, though, with the Dylan Mulvaney thing. Suddenly that tanked their marketing. Are people the whole wiener thing being, I don't know, related to having some funny but oddly sexual connotations, and I don't know. I just thought it was.
I think you're overthinking it, though.
Am I? Okay.
I think it's one of those things where they already have rebranded their new sausage formulation and calling them Franks on their packaging. So they were just going to say, okay, let's do this for a little while and call them the Frankmobile. And of course, my idea, though, is that they need to get Danny DeVito to start doing TV ads as Frank from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I love
doing all kinds of really stupid stunts and in their commercials, driving the Frankmobile all over the country.
I love that Andrew makes this comment. It's kind of reducing us to sex. Yeah, it is. But I also tend to think, Andrew, unfortunately, on the opposite side, advocates also reduce identity to sex, since it seems to be so prevalent everywhere now with identity politics. And I don't care if you're straight, gay, whatever. I don't need to know about it. It's fine. I accept you. But it does seem like identity does, especially as I'm not going to drive in a ditch completely on this, but as we're talking about stuff that has been entering classrooms, middle school classrooms, where I don't think kids need to learn sexual stuff in middle school. It's like identity is important, but when it suddenly becomes all about the sexual relations to gender and stuff, it's like, it feels to me like everything about identity politics is about, as I see it put, in my face, is all about like, accept that we have different viewpoints or different sexual interests. And it's like, fine, but I don't need to know about it, So when Andrew says it's kind of reducing us to sex, yeah, to me, that's a lot of the messaging in identity politic issues that I see. But anyway. But Miguel says he thinks it's just a marketing scheme. I didn't know that Burger King had a Pride burger, Andrew. Yeah. I don't need a beer branded with a transgender spokesperson any more than I need a burger branded with a Pride burger. It's food, it's beer. Great. That's how you identify. Terrific. Doesn't need to be. And here's the interesting thing too, Andrew. I don't think Burger King gives a shit about Pride any more than I think Bud Light gives a shit about transgender issues. They're just seizing a moment to figure out how they can market and make money selling beer to a demographic that they really don't give a shit about. It's just a moment. It's a advantageous moment.
Yeah.
Yes, it's weaponized. Yep. I hear you. That's kind of where I'm going with that. Nah, Oreo doesn't need to advertise Oreos. Although I will say the reason, did I ever share why I named him Oreo? He's the soft, creamy filling in the middle of the two Oreo biscuits. Black on top, black on the bottom, creamy filling in between. That's why he's
yep.
All right, everybody. That's our show. Anything you got at the end here, Ed?
Just to remind everybody that to pick up your Brandon Bingo card at ChicagoCornerTV.com, and the website looks kind of like this, kind of, sort of.
Beautiful website designed and built by Ed.
So you can see there's a link. There's a link right there. You see latest for Chicago Corners. It says get your Brandon Bingo card here, and it's got a link, and and what you do is it gives you a redirect notice, and then you just click on the link, and it'll load your bingo card, which looks like this, kind of like that.
And Ed's got one marked up. Andrew also threw in one last comment. Yeah, stealing messages and profiting off of pain. When as he stated earlier, identity politics is supposed to be about fighting for our rights. Sadly, it gets weaponized and marketed. All right, everybody. There you go. Thank you for joining us on this Friday night edition of Chicago Corner. We hope you all had fun. We hope if you can afford to, please support us at patreon.com// however you read it, Chicago Corner. We have 6 patrons now. Let's quickly go to the banner and thank our patrons once again here at the tail end of the program. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 patrons. We thank you all for your support. So yeah, that's that. Ed, as always, thanks for co-piloting the show with me tonight.
Yeah, I'm happy to have joined you this evening. I hope I wasn't too disruptive to your flow tonight. We had a relatively decent internet connection tonight.
Yeah.
I don't think we had too many hiccups.
Nope. And once again, we want to congratulate our new mayor, Brandon Johnson. I think he's off to a decent start. Time will tell. we cross our fingers. Things will continue on that path. All right, Ed, thanks for joining me tonight. To everyone else out there in Chicago, please thank you for joining us. Share our links on Twitter and Facebook and other social media. Share our YouTube channel. As we go into the weekend, please make sure to stay safe, watch out for each other, be vigilant, and remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. From Oreo and I, stay safe, Chicago.
Get out of here, you Daigle bastard! Go on, get your ass out of here!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.